Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth, city staff, invited guests, and my colleagues on council. I want to welcome everyone to the Portsmouth City Council meeting this evening. I would ask at this time if everyone would please stand for a moment of silence, and afterwards we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I would ask my colleagues to please note your presence electronically.
7 members of City Council are present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we do have the minutes of a call meeting on March 26, 2024, and a regular meeting on March 26, 2024. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Move adoption.
Second.
I would ask that you please vote electronically.
The minutes are adopted 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we have come to the council rules. Madam Clerk, would you please read the council speaking rules?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light and hear a beep. And we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I will, at this time, read from the Rules of Order and Procedure of the Portsmouth City Council, Section 5, Decorum and Order. No language or conduct detrimental to the function of the meeting shall be permitted. The presiding officer shall maintain the dignity of the meeting, preserve decorum and order, and shall call out of order any person violating these rules of order or procedure. Applause shall be permitted only during awards and presentations. During all other agenda items, a speaker may request an expression of consensus, support, or opposition by calling for a show of hands or for members of the audience to silently stand. No citizen shall be permitted to make personal accusations or attacks against another citizen. The presiding officer shall decide all questions of order without debate, which shall be subject to appeal to the council by any member thereof. A question of order takes precedent over the question given rise to it. Except for conduct reasonably perceived as posing an immediate threat to the physical safety of the other members of council or the public, no member of council shall be ejected from a council meeting for disorderly conduct except by majority vote of the members of council then present. The chief of police or his designee shall serve as sergeant at arms at all city council meetings. The sergeant at arms shall, under the direction of the presiding officer, have charge of the council chamber and shall prevent any interruption of the business of the council by disorder within or without. Thank you for your time. We have now come to the item on our agenda of public hearings, item 24-91. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the public hearing item?
Yes, sir. Public hearing to solicit citizen comments on the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, ma'am. And we do have a presentation, and Dr. Patton, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. This evening, Mr. Jeffrey Kramer, the city's Community Development Manager, will present the 5-year consolidated plan for the FY 25 through 29 Community Development Block Grant and Home Budget for FY 25. Mr. Kramer.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, council members. So the city is an entitlement program under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and as such, we need to do an annual plan that provides the use of funds. And this year, we also need to do a 5-year.
Okay, it's not working. Ashley,
Which way am I?
hold on, just hold on a second, Jeffrey. Ashley, just make sure it's clicked on.
Okay, so we need to do a 5-year plan this year that covers the city's fiscal years 25 to 29 and federal fiscal years 24 to 28. And then, as I said, we also do the annual action plan, which is the first year plan for this fiscal year 25 of the 5-year cycle. The 5-year plan serves to support the Build One Portsmouth, which is the city's comprehensive plan, and the statutory purposes of the CDBG program. And HUD looks at these priorities against which the 5-year CP and the performance under the action plan is evaluated. Just sort of briefly, the 5-year consolidated plan provides priorities for the activities that'll be funded through the next 5 years. And just broadly, these include providing effective city program administration and planning, support neighborhoods with improved public facilities and infrastructure services and reduce blight, sustain home ownership, provide livable and affordable housing, continue economic development, maintain support service for homeless persons, persons at risk of homelessness, and persons with special needs. These are the broad categories for the use of CDBG. They fall into public services, admin, and just project use, which covers sort of the bricks and mortars and most everything else that's not a public service or admin and planning. And CDBG assisted activities must meet one of 3 national objectives, either benefiting low and moderate income persons, preventing slum and blight, or addressing urgent needs. So this is what the allocation for 25 has not been announced yet by HUD. So our budget is based off of the current year of this 1.5. We anticipate about $168,000 of program income. There's about $250,000 of uncommitted funds from prior years, giving us a total of about $2 million versus the 2.5 of requests. This shows the activities that we are proposing for funding, the public service activities, and these are limited to 15% of the annual allocation and also 15% of the program income. So we anticipate $256,947, and we are proposing funding kids' meals for about $83,000, the Parks and Recreation Youth Leadership for $19,000, summer camp enrollment by Parks and Rec for $20,000, the independent services for the disabled at 35, Children's Harbor for 50,000, and Ida Barber Early Learning Center for 50,000. I'd like to note the Portsmouth Volunteers for Homeless asked for money. We have some homeless assistance money, and we'll be using that to address what they requested. So in terms of admin, we can use 20% of the annual allocation for admin, and we budgeted that at about 165 for the city for its overhead. Then DSS for 100,000 to support the running of the Portsmouth Homeless Action Consortium, and then about 44,000 for Portsmouth at Work to cover the rent of their space. And then other CDBG funded projects that we're recommending are redevelopment at the Charles Peak Little League for $825. The neighborhood facility, the design of the kitchen and restrooms there for $150. Play equipment for 2 parks, Jefferson Park and Highland and Lansing Park at $100 apiece. Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority is going to use $215,000 to support a housing rehab program, and then $7,500 for the sheriffs to support buying materials for handicap ramps. Our home entitlement, again, we're basing it off of this year's allocation of about $511,000. And we actually didn't get that many requests. And we're proposing funding of the tenant-based rent assistance program run by 4 Kids for $177, the down and closing for $257, and then we have this CHOTO set aside of 15% of this $76,648. And these are your next steps here tonight, and the 23rd are public hearings with the adoption scheduled for May 14th with submitting of the 5-year plan and the annual action plan to HUD by May 15th, and starting the new program year on July 1, and I will accept questions.
Thank you, Mr. Crimer. Councilman Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. As far as the Parks and Rec Summer Camp enrollment fee, the $20,000 that's being proposed, do you know if that covers all our children that's signed up for that program?
I don't believe it does. I forget how many. I'd have to verify how many we did this year, but or last year. They haven't submitted them yet for this year, but it covers quite a few, but not everyone. The one thing is that the kids we have to document that they are from a low-income household. But yeah, I don't believe it covers everything. We'll have to look into how many.
So with the Children's Harbor, the $50,000 that they're asking for, I see that we didn't give any the previous year. What does that consist of?
So they run a school program, preschool, and I think it's up to, 12 or 13-year-olds. And so they're going to pay for some of their staff time for running their program, their schooling program.
So for me, I kind of have a problem with that. Here's why I have a problem with that. We're saying that our kids that go to our Parks and Rec summer program, they have to pay, but then we're going to give money to another organization, $50,000, instead of investing that back into our summer program so that all our kids can free, whether they're low income or regular income. It shouldn't matter, because I'm sure it doesn't matter when it comes to this other program with the Children's Harbor. We should be investing in our programs and our children, making sure that they have free opportunities. The other programs shouldn't be benefiting off us financially if we're not going to make sure that our kids get the first opportunity to participate in our programs for free. So I'm not sure what I need to do right now, but I would like to see first find out what it costs to run our summer program for all our kids for free, and reimburse some of this money back to our Parks and Rec so that we can run these programs for free for our children so that nobody will have to pay for this summer program. And I don't think it should be, I think we can do a certain number of low-income guarantee, but I don't think it should be a thing whether it's low income or higher income. It should be everybody can get in for free. We need to be looking out for our programs, our children, and people that participate in the city's activities before we go look out for anybody else. So I don't know if it needs to be a consensus or that's just something that comes back later before we vote on it.
Well, I can tell you that the interim manager is taking notes on that, so it can be something to come back. But I would like to ask a question as it relates to the individual organizations that we're funding with the child care. It's my understanding those kinds of organizations also have needs-based, and they're on sliding scales. So they also have people that might be coming in the door that need child care assistance who can't pay the full rate. So when we look at that, we need to bring back the information that is equitable, I think, on both sides, because a working mom or working parent that can't pay the full price for child care, I think that's fair to consider how we help those individuals as well, because they are under certain constraints. So if we could put together both of those and bring back some information in regards to the children that are in the Parks and Rec programs, as well as those families that are seeking child care, because I do know that some of those organizations have a sliding scale based on their income as well.
I'm not opposed to us bringing the information back, but I think first and foremost, we got to make sure that we look out for our kids that's coming in, that's going to our programs in Portsmouth. It doesn't make sense to, in my opinion, to charge kids for something in Portsmouth and then give money to somebody else who isn't associated with the city of Portsmouth programs or government. That, to me, that personally, how are we charging, what is it, a couple of hundred for that summer program? Why are we charging them and giving somebody else some money when they can just be in our programs for free?
It's a fair question, sir, but I think it is a fair question. That's why we're going to have it looked into and bring back some information, okay? Council Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Are you on
had
the
a
same
response
issue?
to,
Oh,
yeah,
Okay, I meant the same
not,
children
not
hall.
related to his, no.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask Mr. McKent, can we stay
Well-
on this issue?
Well,
and-
we can certainly stay on the issue, sir, but she had the floor next, so you'll be after her. So we can absolutely stay on the same issue.
Respond to,
Yeah.
he wanted to respond to the,
Okay, well,
Councilman
he can
I
respond.
just wanted to follow up with the request, so we won't have to go back and forth with it. As we look into the information, can you also find out as far as Children's Harbor,
Yes, I have
who's,
that right here.
right, but the question I'm asking, who's being served? Because the question that's being raised is about whether these are Portsmouth children versus non-Portsmouth children. So when you gather that data, if that could be something, I don't know, if that information that is submitted as part of the application.
Yeah, so we would be, yeah, we would write the agreement with them. When we give someone money, we put it on, we do a subrecipient agreement that lays out all the parameters. And it would be required that they serve Portsmouth residents and their children.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just, when it comes, it's yeah, that's where I got it from. When it comes to our children, I think that when it comes to the programs for the children of Portsmouth, when it comes to Portsmouth programs, we got to make sure that they're taken care of first. And if we're giving money out to other organizations, I think it's important that our kids get free first before we put the money here or put it over there, or at least reduce before we do all that. Those other organizations should get what we have left over, not taken away from, or we're making other children pay for certain programs while we give to this organization over here or this group over here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor Lucas
Thank you,
Burke,
Mayor.
ma'am, you have the floor.
Right. Mr. Kramer, thank you for the presentation. I was looking at page 7 and page 9 relative to the Wesley Community Center, and I see that they're listed there for 0 last year, and their request for $60,000 on page 7 and $339 $100,000 plus on page 9, but they were not funded. You mentioned that Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless is going to come out of another pot, but why weren't, I mean, for people who are listening in the audience might want to know why those are zeros right there as well.
So the pot of money that we can fund Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless, you have to, the beneficiaries need to be homeless. And so Wesley is not falling into that category. And, so we're just working with this finite pot of money, and there is, this issue of trying to balance out what some of the city's needs are with what some of the other more community-wide needs are. And I guess, so we sort of, based on working with this finite pot of money, this is where we got to. We just didn't really have enough to fund Wesley this year.
Okay, all right. So, and I know that was one of the council's requests, so I hope that it could go on the list of considerations for, if not the whole amount, a portion of that.
Councilman Hugo, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the brief, Mr. Kramer. I'm on page 7. We've put money into Portsmouth at Work this year. They've asked for an increase, and we're not funding them. Is there another source of funding that you're aware of going to Portsmouth at Work? Or did we just run out of money and decide that jobs are not as important as some other things?
It's my understanding that they are included in the city's budget. And so someone would have to confirm that, but that was my understanding.
Okay.
Excuse me, Councilman Hugo, Dr. Patton would like the floor. Dr.
Yep.
Patton, you have the
Mayor,
floor.
Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, they are being recommended for funding in the city's FY25 budget.
Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes. Mr. Kramer, on page 7, where you mentioned Portsmouth Volunteers for the Homeless, you mentioned that there are other funds to address their requests. Does that mean it's going to fund their request?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that
Yes.
so they'll be getting the full 27,000.
Yes.
Okay. And then the Portsmouth at Work is being funded on page 8, under the CBG Administration and Planning. So is that in addition to
Yes.
what you were just speaking about?
This is funding from the administration and planning of that group, but for the Portsmouth at Works, there is money in the FY.
Yeah, so that money will cover the rent.
Yeah, that's
not
just
the
programmatic.
services themselves, but the rent that they pay on the space they use.
Yeah. That was an issue that I raised in a one-on-one meetings with Dr. Patton and Mr. Burke, that we have these offices in private buildings and locations that are not accessible really to the people you're trying to serve. And so, we dealt with this issue some years ago, paying private organizations rent for city programs that could be located more in the community. And so I'm just raising it to council members that's something we need to look at seriously when we're offering services to the community where we're locating them, and paying rent to private organizations when we have public facilities in the community that can be used.
Thank you, sir. That concludes your presentation, sir? Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, and if you wish to come and speak on this particular item, you can come forward and speak on this particular item. You will have 5 minutes. Please, when you come forward, state your name and address. And our first speaker is Ms. Donna Biggs. Ma'am, if you would come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I do live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 2491 concerns the community's attention being paid to the needs of low, very low, and extremely low income households experiencing housing problems, as well as the requirements of special needs populations and the needs of the homeless and persons at risk of homelessness. This strategic plan describes the priorities and goals for the city with respect to housing and non-housing community development needs for the next 5 years. When was the meeting to obtain the list of priorities and goals for this meeting, for the needs? The annual action plan identifies the activities that will be undertaken to address priority needs and objectives identified by the city's 5-year consolidated plan. The purpose of this hearing is to solicit citizens' comments on this 5-year consolidated plan for the city. HUD has not announced the allocation for funding of this CDBG entitlement grant of $1,544,932 or the program income of $168,049.50 or the priority years funds of $250,000 or the city's home entitlement grant of $510,989. Who drafted all this request for HUD funding? Where is the report that demonstrates the needs for this funding? How was PHAC involved with the request for this funding? Once HUD announces the CDBG and home allocations, the city will adjust the budgets of all the funded projects based on the proportion change from the estimated allocation. No recipient will be awarded more funding than requested by the organization. Who are these sub-recipients? Where is their request for funding? And what have these sub-recipients spent already for homelessness? The copies of the 5-year consolidated plan, action plan, are available for public inspection and review online. When was the meeting for the people to meet and discuss this action plan? The City of Portsmouth is an equal opportunity agency and does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, familial status, physical impairment, or national origin in the admission or access to federally assisted programs and activities. How is this program not discriminating when the city is changing the rates and levies on the people in our city, not in this action plan? And all the information I received from this handout does not coordinate with what was just presented. And where did we have that meeting with we the people to discuss all this so that we know? And see how the community is impacted? There's information. It's important to assess impact of your community development program. So we, the people, needed to be part of all this discussion instead of just coming up here talking, y'all vote, Yeah, we need to be involved before y'all make the decision to vote on this.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing item. You are not required to have signed up to speak on this public hearing item. If you should come up to speak, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen of council.
Good day, sir.
You know, it's really getting old. We're sitting there talking about the homeless and all this, all right? Every day where my shop is located, I see them up and down the street, coming inside, begging for money and all that. First off, a good percentage of them are on narcotics. So we need to address the problems where it is. Where my heart goes out is when I have, and in the area I'm at, we have a lot of older people that come into my shop asking us for money because they can't make ends meet because of what they're getting on Social Security and stuff. I mean, honestly, let's look at the people who've been paying taxes and been working And it put in a position where they can't afford stuff versus the homeless. I mean, to me, the homeless around here is basically a problem within. You cannot help them unless they help themselves. And it's a situation where all these, organizations with their hands out saying, they're saying, let help. Yeah, so we could put our money in the palm of their hands and they go over there and put 10% of a dollar to the organization. It's getting old. The money is, it's being spent stupidly. I mean, we got money coming in from the casino and a bunch of other stuff. We got money coming in from the state for gambling to the school systems and all. All this money coming in and nothing's being done. Like I said, my heart goes out to people. But the homeless problem is brought on by themselves, 90% of it. And bottom line is, it's going to come down to these organizations that got their hands out, these churches and everything else. Yeah, well, let's go over and do this, do that. Give us money. And you're giving them money and nothing's being done. It's a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Once again, this is a public hearing. If you come forward to speak on this item, please state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all the members of council. My name is Armando Grundy Gomez. I think we've kind of lost sight. Some folks are talking about we the people, but for the sake of transparency and not the sake of argument, I think one question would be asked, and I could always get the answer later, is it's always good to have more transparency and it's always good to have more involvement from the public. And I guess that would lead to be asking, does council have a process in place where you have involvement of an advisory board when it comes to these development block grants? Because this development block grant has been around for quite some time. Sometimes for some people, some up there maybe were even born, going back to the 80s. And so community development block grant is our dollars. When people are saying we, it's our money. It's money that you and I and all of us have paid in to use. And I think so whenever you have, Mr. Mayor, since I have to talk to you as the chair, is there a process in place for that? And you're not going to answer that now because I know we can't go back and forth, but if I get that answer later, that'd be great. The other thing would be is when we're wanting to address and make this money, because obviously the efficacy of this money is important for it to want to go further and spread it out, because we want to do the most we can, the best we can with what we have and what limited resources we have. And so I think it is important when some of your colleagues up there are talking about accessibility for those people that we're supposed to attack. That's important. If people can't get access and we're supposed to get, how is that helping people? If we're paying these folks but we can't get access, your own residents, your own neighbors, your family members can't get access, that's a problem. And I think the other thing about it is, I heard the back and forth, Mr. Mayor, between you and your colleague, and I think you all are talking about two different things. You're talking about, to your point, there are very different issues when single moms are needing people to get housing for their family. And I think also for the children and residents of Portsmouth that are also wanting to get services that we're paying for something. To that point, I think there's something to be said about that as well. If you're, as a government, wanting access for your children, every child, regardless of socioeconomic status, should have access to those services. Not to mention, I think one of your pages said even feeding kids that should almost be year round. That's $60,000 or $50,000 you could take to making sure there's not one hungry child in this city, and if they're mobile throughout time. So you can never go wrong with more transparency. And if your citizens and residents want to have it, you should have an advisory board so they can look at this and say, who are we looking at throughout our city? Is this a good fit? And then that advisory board gets to report back to all of you and say, this is what our findings are. You can't go wrong with more transparency. And that's going to be a theme for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
To the citizen's point, as far as the comment about the single the single parents, when it comes to single moms and single parents in general, the city of Portsmouth services those as well. So that's why, for me, I want to make sure that we're providing that service with our city first, so that we can take care of those single moms. As far as to the citizens, this is a public hearing. So in the public hearing, this is your opportunity to kind of discuss what we're going to do with these funds. So that's why you don't have to sign up to actually talk. To talk about the subject, you can come on your own and kind of let us know what you guys would like for us to do with this money and the different things that we should put it towards. So this is what this opportunity is for. I do agree with one of the speakers earlier. Some things we do need to include the citizens on more, but this is one of those opportunities where we are including the citizens. So take advantage of it.
How y'all doing? Sherman Tyler, 1812 Park Avenue. I would like to say, when it comes to our budget, and I'm just gonna say it because y'all have made some really bad decisions with our money in the last couple of years. You just have, real bad. We lost a lot of money, and it's nonsense. So that advisory board, that will give the people a chance to speak. 'Cause I got to admit, like I said, we lost a lot of nonsense money over the last couple of years, just doing dumb stuff. So if you know what y'all doing not working, maybe you may want to involve the people, the taxpayers, the one that all this money come from. 'Cause it come from us, the workers, the homeowners. It come from us. So it should be a board set in place to even not challenge what y'all say, but bring some kind of sense to it. How in the world could you bring up a proposal to leave out the kids in Portsmouth, but fund something else? When you got people making decisions like that, you need a advisory board. That shouldn't even brought to us. That shouldn't even been brought to us. This is our city. These are our kids. We taxpayers. So why would our children be charged, but outside people get free? When you start making people making decisions like that, you need somebody with fresh ears, because that don't make sense. When he said it, it didn't make sense to me. This is our city, it's our taxpayers, we're taxpayers, it's our money. So why should our children, once again, our children have to pay for anything? Why would they even put in our proposal? It was silly. It just was silly. So once again, y'all need to come up with something, man, and get the people involved a little more, of how our money being spent. It's certain organizations up there that I watch, the Wesley Center. I live a block from that. Them people are about a good work there. They're about a good work. Our good work. 'Cause I see them out there every day. We need them. Give them what they need. Let's keep, it's not a race thing, but let's keep the money, man, where the money come from. And build up these people. Once you know better, you will do better. Bring the communities up. Spend the majority of that money in the low income. Bring them up to the level where some of y'all at, and maybe a lot of stuff will stop going on. But we got to keep our money with us and fund these programs that actually help our community. There's a lot of them not seeing up there really help us. And we got to continue to fund them and bring in outside people. Because like I said, the last couple of years, that's the management of our money been a mess. And y'all know it. We done wasted so many millions of nonsense. So let's get a little wiser, and let's stop using them 7 heads. And because you got 95,000 people in this city that pay, well, not all of them, but most of them pay taxes. They're hard workers. And you want to leave out the 95 to let 7 people determine our destiny. And we tried that over the last 4 years, and it ain't been working. This is the worst that we don't see in the last 4. They're worse. All right, so it's not working. Let's try something else. Involve the people, man. Let us give our 2 cents about where we think our money should go at, or the programs that we need in our community to make our community better. So they might want to get off drugs. They might want to go and find employment. But you got to bring them up to you got to bring them up. Give them a shot. And with them funding right there, some of them funders is giving them people shots, and we're not going to receive, well, let's stop giving the money to these people, all this kind of crap. These people need us. Because that could be fact us. It's not nothing that we did so good that we live like we live in. It's the grace of God. So let's bring them up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. You're not required to have signed up to speak on this public hearing item. If you come forward, state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
My name's Sheila Joseph at 139 Grand Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. I just wanted to ask the question at this point before, anything's created. I would like to see how I can get involved, as together we can make a difference, and as an individual that has an interest in what's going on in the city of Portsmouth with the different program. And I would like to be in on it before it is created. So can I get that done, to give me some information how we can set it up?
Ma'am, we can certainly have someone talk to you, but we have city departments that do a lot of the work based on the needs of the city. So I don't know what that looks like today, but we can have someone talk to you about how you may be able to participate at some
Yes.
level.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, you can come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, would you please read item 24-92? Please read the public hearing item we're considering at this time. Item A.
Yes, sir. Public hearing to consider the annual operating budget for FY 2025.
Thank you, ma'am. And we do have a speaker for this particular item. Our first listed speaker is Mr. Mark Godaldig-Yatrovsky. Mr. Yatrovsky, if you would come forward, sir, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and other neighbors. So I'd like to say that despite the way we came into this process in recent weeks, I was positively taken with many aspects of the budget message. There are some new initiatives I'm seeing this year that I think are brilliant. One of those being the library's mobile resource center, bringing the resources of the library to the public where they are. It includes a special outreach to youth and aging populations, those who have transportation access impediments, and the vehicle and its staff will provide classes in digital skills for workforce development and creative outlets such as coding, robotics, video production, and interviews with educators and artists while meeting citizens where they are. Bravo. Medical debt relief. This is something that I had not seen presented anywhere before. I'm sure it goes on in other communities, but it makes sense. So through working with nonprofit organizations, we would be purchasing and forgiving medical debt that Portsmouth citizens have incurred. According to the description, medical debt is incurred by individuals at no fault of their own and can impact their ability to find employment, housing, and transportation. Medical debt can be purchased at a penny on the dollar. I think probably that's virtual. Not literally penny on the dollar, but pennies on the dollar, and debt relief can change the lives of those working to pay it off. Again, this is a brilliant initiative, and I think it will improve quality of life in the city of Portsmouth. Dovetailing on the previous public hearing item, permanent supportive housing is proposed as part of this operating budget. So up to 50 units will be leased throughout the city of Portsmouth to those qualifying for that kind of support. These are people with mental disabilities, and there is a raft of associated services that will be accessible to these folks. I'm wondering if we know, if we have identified a number. I'm thinking that 50 is probably a foot in the water and the need is greater than that, but it's a starting point, and it's something that is totally new to our city. So these are the great things that I see in the operating budget. The cautions have to do with our OPEB and our city pension plans. I feel handicapped working with the operating budget, not having seen last year's CAFR and not knowing what the actual fund, unrestricted fund balance is. And I will talk more about that at another time. But that's one thing that has been a sticking point for me in all budget deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker on this public hearing item, number A, public hearing to consider the annual operating budget for FY 2025, is Donna Biggs. Ms. Biggs, you state your name and address, ma'am. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 24-92A concerns the consolidation of the annual operating budget. The one sheet of paper gives an operating budget summary. The total revenue is listed as $902,710,846. There's no list of where these revenues are coming from and the amount. Why is there no list by summary? The advertisement for the public hearing on the proposed operating budget for the year goes on to read that the purpose of the public hearing is to consider the annual operating budget as recommended by the city manager. Looking at the organizational structure of the city, the citizens are at the top of the structure. The citizens tell the city council representatives what their needs are, and by being divided in 5 districts, because there are 5 legislative representatives elected to represent the people of their district. How did these 5 legislative representatives get in touch with their citizens by their 5 council of civic leagues in the city to make a list of what is needed in their community? Then how did these representatives get an expense statement created to put into the operating budget? The advertisement says that interested citizens are invited to attend the public hearings in person and expressing their views on the proposed annual operating budget. When was a meeting with the civic leagues done to show the people the organized structure of the budget and how it was created to educate the people on the process of how the money was going to come in and how it was going to be spent on the needs of the community in which we live? The city council may recess or adjourn the public hearings or I don't know what I said, from day to day, time to time, place to place. What does it mean that the city council may recess or adjourn the public hearings or either of them from day to day, time to time, or place to place? The city manager's proposed budget is available for public viewing on the city's website. Copies of the city manager's proposed budget are also available for public viewing at each of the open locations of the Portsmouth Public Library and at the office of the city clerk on the 6th floor. of City Hall. The people are the government. It is their budget, not the city manager's budget. The proposed ordinance pertaining to adoption of the for the year 2025 budget will also be available on the city's official website. The budget has been prepared on the basis of estimates and requests submitted to City Council as recommended by the city manager. There is no allocation or designation of any funds of the city for any purpose until there has been apportionment for that purpose by City Council. See this information, recommendation by the city manager. The responsibility is for the people telling the elected that is responsible to listen to the needs of the people. The city manager's job is to manage what the people need through the 5 legislative representatives of the people. As an example of how a summary of a proposed budget looks like, review the Gloucester County's administrator's proposed budget for the year 2025. Help the people self-govern by listening to the community's needs by talking with the people. If you don't want to communicate with the people, just tell them.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this public hearing, you can come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. Sir?
Once again, William Britt, Sterling Point. Now, I got a major problem. Let's take money out of the issue. All right, it takes an administrator 2 to 3 months to get caught up and to what's going on. We're going through city manager after city manager after city manager, one after another. So by the time they get caught up, we're going to replace them with another city manager. I got a problem with that, and I also have a problem with this. I'm not going to mention any names. One that took a retirement, and council voted $100,000 more on that retirement when they left.
Sir, you need to speak to the public hearing item. The public, sir, please let me finish.
Sure.
The public hearing item states to consider the annual operating budget. If you are not speaking to what is contained in the annual operating budget, then you will have 2 choices. One will be to take your seat if you are not speaking to that, or 2 would be to speak to it. So, sir, if you persist with not speaking to it, I'm going to call you out of order, and then I'm going to ask you to have a seat. Okay?
Can I proceed?
Yes, you may.
All right, consultant fees, it's not part of the budget. If it is part of the budget, why are we paying an exuberant rate for an individual on consultant fees? And that needs to be looked into.
Thank you, sir. Sir, if you would state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. My name is Sergio O'Neill. I live at 1420 Elm Avenue, Apartment C in the city of Portsmouth. In considering the operating budget for FY 2025, I was really intrigued when I learned that over $400,000 is spent on operating just the city council alone in this city. And it inclines me to think, why does it take so much money? Why is so much money being proposed to operate the city council as a body in this city? It's on the very top of the actual budget breakdown per department. So once you get to item 19.1 in the budget, for the citizens that don't know what I'm talking about, please go there and look to see exactly what that is. The reason why I raised that question is because, that's just like when you go and buy something, you put money towards something, you hope it is of value and it's worth the amount of money that you paid for it. And we have to think about the council body as a whole. Is it worth $400,000? Are we sure every member of council is worth collectively putting that amount of money into? Because I find it to be like, wow, for lack of better words. If we're and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying for people who are going to may take this the wrong way. I'm not saying that one person on this council gets $400,000. This is a collective operation of the council that includes salary, benefits, printing, everything that the council has to do. That includes all of that. But we have to think about it. Like when we're going to go vote, you got to remember these people are going to be. We're going to be spending about $400,000 on these people. So remember in November that you are putting your name to somebody who is going to be part of $400,000 of your tax dollars. And think about the services they have provided as a council member. Whether it be worth noting, say, yes, they did a good job, or what in the world, why are they up there? Because I can guarantee you right now, I'm not wasting $400,000 on nobody. I don't waste $400,000 on myself, my kids. Because if I knew, and you know what, it's always worth the public educating themselves on the budget. Because sometimes, we get up here and we talk about money and, what happens with it and why does it happen and where does it come from. But we have to remember, these departments in the city are a collective body. So yes, and I can guarantee you one thing on this budget that is always going to be worth investing in is education. Because I can guarantee you this, above anything else, without education, this city will fail. And we have already seen the end result of not investing in education. Because I can tell you, as a manager that has been doing it for a long, I'm 36 years old. I've been managing since I was 19 years old. So I have seen plenty of people who came out of the public education system, and I've seen the decline that has happened because of the lack of investment that has happened, the lack of effort that has been put into making sure the next generation is ready to take over the mountains and the valleys that we are, as a body, creating for them. So, and also, so let me just put it out there that whatever the final decision is, please make sure, with nothing else, that you all continue to make sure education is of top priority in this city, so we can have the public safety that we need, so we can have all of everything else we need, because we have none of that without education. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you are coming forward to speak on this item, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Armando Grundy Gomez. The one thing I wanted to also bring up regarding the budget, Mr. Mayor, is we know what as a city or whatever community or municipality values by what's in the budget. And obviously, we have to look for the comprehensive budget online. Based on the summary, I want to ask a different type of question on a couple of values. I've heard you, Mr. Mayor, you yourself say we are a city that's landlocked, which is geographically true. So if we're landlocked, we're going to obviously get some payments in lieu of taxes possibly, but we also have to do with less land, less developable land. So the question is, how do we maximize that? I remember you actually saying that during a meeting. And I think that's not anything that's anything new. You all have dealt with that for many, many years since you've been incorporated. My question to you is, if you know that coming into it, what, as a city, and this would probably be not appropriate necessarily to you, Mr. Mayor, or the incoming city manager, when the city manager takes the seat, is what, as a city, are we doing to grow the revenue streams when it comes to true economic development? I'm seeing the capital projects on here. When it comes to moving the jail or certain capital projects, I really don't see anything that I could see when it comes to wanting to grow. This is germane to the budget, is growing your revenue stream. Because if you're going to be, money is not fine, it's not infinite, right? So you have a finite number. So that's going to be one, is how are we going to grow it? That's as a challenge. The other one would be is every meeting I watch, somebody comes up here in the budget and talks about we're dealing with somebody being killed or murdered, your friends, your neighbors, your family members. We know, again, what is valued. You are not going to be able to police your way out of gun violence. You just cannot. So my question to you, all of you, really collectively, is if you cannot police your way out of it, where in your budget are you showing, and you show it, and believe what people do and not what they say. We care about it. That's great. Where tangibly are we going to tangibly deal with gun violence? Because we can hire more police officers. We can get a new jail, buy Hampton Roads, whatever you're going to do. Not get sued, hopefully, by the judge, so you don't have to deal with the juvenile thing. But how do we tangibly do it? Because growing an economy, poverty, people with 700 credit scores in certain neighborhoods, you don't see those kind of crime problems. They're based on statistics. And I'm not talking about, but poverty impacts, regardless of color, has an impact on it. So my question to you is, outside of just our great police department that we have here, we have to all have a multi-pronged approach in this budget to address the thing that you all say you care about, but don't tell me, show me. And for some of you that were educators, you used to go, let's go back to school, show your work. Show your work. Because this is not saying, out of a summary, what we care about. I hear about dark fiber, I hear about all these things we love, whether it be these, touch and good, feel good things. But when it comes to the things that are not really, until it comes and knocks on our door, hopefully it doesn't impact any of you, but I know some of us have been impacted by those things. Show us. Don't tell us, show us. And that's where it matters. So in this budget, to the incoming city manager, when that city manager takes a seat, I would love to see all of you talk about how we grow the economy here in Portsmouth and how we truly, outside of trying to police our way out of it, really deal with gun violence. Because we're not going to deal with it just policing our way out of it. Not going to happen. Oh, and one last thing, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Also, controlling and careening costs out of control. You all voted on something that's going to cause something to exponentially increase your costs in your budget. A lot of you up there voted to have police and fire unions come in. Some of you did, not all of you, but some of you did. And that is, you're not going to be able to control your costs that way because you're going to have to come in and you're going to have people negotiating. And that was something that you're not going to be betting on, but I can promise you, as true as the sky is blue, well, right now it's black, but as true as that sky is blue, and as true as today is April 9th, your costs will careen out of control. Remember, I told you.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Andrew Abraham, right across the street at 800 Crawford. I actually have a question for everyone on the City Council. How much detail do you all get on specific budget items? Because some of them seem rather vague. So, for example, number 523999 just says rentals-other. And I see that in 2023, the budget for that item was $9,446. This year, it's $20,000, and it's proposed next year for $25,000. So how much information do you all get about that, and how could I, as a citizen, find out what exactly is being rented for that $25,000?
Sir, you have come forward to speak on the item. This is not an engagement with a question and answer. We have a budget book. We get a budget book, everyone on the dais. We look at that budget book. We have meetings with our city manager and city staff to go over any questions that we have relative to the budget. So if you want to know more detail, someone will speak with you after the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you wish to come forward and speak on this item, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hi, William Dodson, Box 3269. I live in Park Manor. I wanted to say that it's nice to see some progress in the budget. I've spoken with a couple of you who are actually diving into this budget, which is so different of an approach than I've seen in past years. It's really quite refreshing. But still, some of you haven't even looked at it yet, which is kind of sad. Part of the disappointment, I think, in the audience is that in these previous years, this committee has glossed over a lot of items in generality, as the last speaker just noted. And it would be so much appreciated if there was so much more information available to us and we saw that you guys were actually looking at the budget. But there's a couple of you I know that haven't even examined it. Could the rest of you that haven't, please dive into it? Trey has put so much work into this and gone back and forth between, is it 3 managers now to work this budget, I believe, in 3 different methodologies to present to you. He's done a wonderful job. So thank you very much. Thank you, the few of you that are looking into diving and making a difference in this city in how the budget is approached. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come forward and speak on this item, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Welcome, sir.
My name is Jeff Day at 605 Taft Drive here in Portsmouth. And the gentleman prior to me had taken pretty much most of my thunder. However, I would like to piggyback off of what he was talking about. I didn't see anything in the budget pertaining to traffic management. It may be something there, but excuse me if I fail to realize that there's funding there for that. But traffic management in the communities are very disturbing, and is to a point where it's very dangerous. We had certain incidents that had happened within the last couple of weeks here, and that's something that we would like to try to see what we can do in order to improve the traffic management within the communities. We have a lot of speeders out there that's not following the rules, and it's got to the point where it's very dangerous. So with that, I yield back.
Yes, sir.
Thank
You very much. Once again, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to come forward and speak on this public hearing item, come forward and state your name and address. You have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Our next item, item B. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the public hearing item we are considering at this time?
Yes. A public hearing on the recommended 2025 through 2029 capital improvement program.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And our first speaker on this public hearing item is Mr. Mark Godaldig-Yutrovsky. Mr. Yutrovsky, if you would state your name and address, sir, you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council, and other neighbors. So, with regard to the capital budget, I'm really happy that in the era of casino revenues, we haven't thrown aside good fiscal practices for funding capital improvements. We're doing essentially what we have always done. We've had a mix of cash funding from unrestricted fund balance, some borrowing, some reinvestment of earnings. We're doing the same sorts of things we've always done. The conservative approach that the city is taking with regard to casino revenue is eminently sensible. There were estimates of how much we were going to receive. The city has not gone out and spent the estimate. It's been accumulated, and now it's being distributed in various parts of the budget. This is prudent, and I'm happy to see it. In the budget documentation, in the city manager's message, the first part of the budget book, which is available to everybody online through the city's website, you can see how that's being distributed, and minimally, I believe there are 1 or 2 small items that are receiving some funding, but all of it, the whole allocation of that $15 million has been done in a manner that is responsible. So thank you for not going crazy, for not pulling the lever and watching all the money come out and then just flinging it in all directions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. And before I call up the next speaker, I would like to remind everyone that the city manager's proposed budget is available, as Mr. Godaldig-Yutrovsky stated, on our website. However, it is also available for viewing at all of our public libraries. You can also get a copy of the city's budget at our city clerk's office here. Okay, not a copy, but you can come view it. I'm sorry. I was corrected by the clerk on that one. We can't print off a copy. It's a very big booklet. However, you can come view the budget at the city clerk's office at your leisure. So those are the areas in which you can go to access the budget, and I would encourage everyone to please do so. Our next speaker is Ms. Donna Biggs. Ms. Biggs, ma'am, come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 24-92B concerns the consideration of the capital improvement program for the years July the 1st, 2025 through June the 30th, 2029. The notice of a public hearing was just spoken of. The summary on the one sheet of paper is for the proposed capital expenditures for the first year of the 5-year recommendations. The advertisement reads that the proposed capital improvement program is available for public inspection at various locations in the city. All interested citizens and citizen groups are invited to attend in person and comment on the capital improvement program. I thought it would be appropriate to share with you about my learning style, since my learning style has everything to do with my presentation to those who are supposed to talk with not only me, but also with the civic leagues in the Churchland District 5 community to make a list of needs for our District 5. My learning style is kinetic, which means that I learn through action, getting work done. My other learning style is visual. This is why I write, I copy information and show information to people so they will be able to understand what I'm trying to say. That being said, I do research to see what other government, cities, and counties do to show the people how work needs to get done in a systematic way to make the people equally free and independent and apply their inherent rights, of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot, by any compact, deprive or divest their posterity, namely the enjoyment of life and liberty with the means of acquiring and possessing property and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. That all property is invested in and consequently derived from the people, that elected are the people's trustees and servants and at all times amenable to them. From my experience, I haven't witnessed any communication from our trustees and servants to obtain happiness and safety. I witness crime and violence every day in this city. I reviewed the Gloucester Capital Improvement Plan Manual of Proposed Projects for the year July the 1st, 2022 through June the 30th, 26. It includes a summary listing of its project request along with the information in the Capital Improvement Plan Manual to inform their people what the county's existing conditions and identity needs which must be addressed to accomplish their planning goals set forth by the elected. Their capital improvement plan set forth needs and priorities to coordinate the development of their facilities with anticipated funding sources, growth, and the community's ability to pay. Their CIP serves as a blueprint for the future of the community and is a dynamic tool, not a static document. The manual lists the key dates in the development process. It provides a flow chart of the process for review, recommendations, and adoption of the CIP. Their capital improvement plan are arranged by priorities and must fulfill requirements listed. There's a development team, not the city manager. There's a guidelines for prioritization and funding successes. So lastly, there's a capital project prioritization rating form. I haven't seen any of the information provided by a workshop to review all of Portsmouth capital improvement program plans. And what I'm hearing is, you can see this online. It doesn't say about working together as a team, as citizens who are working for a goal together. I like to learn in a group. You want to learn online, go ahead. I want to learn in a group with some instructions.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, Gloucester is a lovely place. Been there many times, but it had nothing at all to do with item number C. So my point is, Mayor, please remind people to stick to the subject, because we have a lot of people that want to speak to a particular item. And I think when we're hearing philosophical speeches versus items pertaining to this budget, in essence, they're denying someone their right to speak here as well.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing, so if you want to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
William Britt, Sterling Point. This is the first chance I had to look over this. I mean, with all this money we got coming in with the taxes, you mean to tell me you're going to increase 5% to water and sewage to the people in the city? All right. We can't work without doing that with the money that's coming into the city with the casino and all that. Let's put it back on the consumer, right? Also, I'm looking at the, it says 7% teachers administration raise. So, am I reading that right? It says 0 or is it 7%? Right here. It says 7% teachers and administration raises.
It's 7%, sir.
All right, 7%. I was just making sure because I'm sitting here looking at 0. What's 0 and then 7%? All right. I mean, that's fine. I think the teachers deserve a raise. I don't think the school administration office do. I think Dr. Bracy needs to go, but that's another thing. Thank you.
This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, if you would come forward, state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Item C, 24-92, item C, and Madam Clerk, would you please read the public hearing item?
Public hearing on proposed changes to rates and levies for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first speaker on this item is Mr. Mark Godaldig-Yutrovsky. Mr. Yutrovsky, if you would come forward, sir, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Mayor, council, and other neighbors. In regard to the schedule of rates and levies, I think it is appropriate for, as I mentioned previously, one of the allocations of casino revenue for that to subsidize the real estate tax rate. We're getting, as we did last year, we're getting a 5 cents per 100 reduction from the established $1.30 per 100 rate. So the casino is helping to ease the burden on the individual taxpayers in the locality, which is one of the advertised benefits. Similarly, the reduction on personal property tax is being in part funded by casino revenue. Another tangible benefit of that particular project. So the city is trying to be mindful of the individual taxpayer burden and still fund essential services like schools. I'm glad that the 5% increase in water rates is holding. I know that's not a popular thing, but we are under a mandate to improve our water system and sewer systems. And there are penalties that we will face if we fail to do that. This is an essential part of staying on track and ensuring that we don't have a Flint situation in this city of Portsmouth. Portsmouth, for the entire time that I have lived here, has had extremely good water quality reports, and that's what we should all desire. I have a question about, and not for immediate answer, but I would like it addressed somewhere in the budget process, as to why we are not maintaining the 5% stormwater increase. It is also aged infrastructure, and we see various places in the city where cave-ins have occurred, and we need to continue to address that vigorously. I understand that there was a bus that was disabled not too long ago in one of our neighborhoods where a section of the right-of-way collapsed after a series of heavy rains. So this requires continued vigilance and attention. So I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Ms. Donna Biggs. Name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 24-92C concerns the proposed changes to rates and levies for the year July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025. On the summary page, it reads that the real property tax rate is to remain $1.30 per $100 of assessed value as part of the for the year 2025 budget. The city assessor sent out a notice of change in assessed value for tax year for the tax year 2024 to 25. So my home assessment went up $1,740 per year. Instead of having a public hearing on the increase to answer questions like right now, why did the city raise the people's home values up to get more money? Instead of having a public hearing, the city assessor allowed for informal appeals. Why? And how did these 5 legislative representatives get in touch with their citizens by their 5 Council of Civic Leagues and the city to make a list of what is needed for their money? The people were not represented on this increase without their knowledge or consent. The people were not represented in this policy change.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, you can come forward, and you will have 5 minutes. State your name and address, ma'am, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Shanina Francis. I live in Green Acres. And I'm a little not happy, even though my neighbor, he all right with a 5% raise on utilities. I am not. Although I'm able to work and I'm gonna do what I need to do to pay this bill, my mother is retired. My mother gets Social Security, my mother gets a pension. Guess what? She does not qualify. No programs that help her pay for her bills. I'm the program, I pay it. So while y'all are thinking about this 5% increase every single year, I need you to think about the people who have retired and do not qualify for programs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, you can come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. We are now moving to item 24-93, public hearing on a rezoning application, item Z 24-01. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the public hearing ordinance we're considering at this time?
Yes, sir. Downtown, ordinance granting the request of Jim Bento with Fairlead Integrated to rezone approximately 2.4 acres located at 0 Harbor Center Court from conditional industrial to conditional industrial K. Okay. To amend proffers to allow outdoor storage on the pier, North Pier. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property for mixed-use employment. The property is owned by Waterfront Acquisition, LLC. Planning Commission recommends denial. If so ordered, the zoning ordinance you would be adopting is zoning amendment ordinance Z 2401.
Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant present? Sir, if you would come forward, state your name and address, and you will have 10 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Madam Clerk, and city staff. My name is Jim Bento, representing Fairlead Integrated, a Portsmouth-based ship repair and shipbuilding company. We're speaking of the North Pier. Waterfront Acquisition is our owner. It's a subsidiary of Fairlead Integrated. We purchased the North Pier adjacent to our main facility right here at Wavy Street in December of 2020. The additional 2-acre North Pier allows Fairlead to better implement its vision of fabricating, preserving, outfitting, storing sections of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and submarines. The initial intent that we had in 2020 was the construction of a 38,000 square foot multi-purpose warehouse and fabrication facility on that pier. We also proposed planters, trees, and fence screening around the north and west property boundaries to honor the transition from an industrial area to the recreational area of the pavilion and the marina. That project was approved as we had proffered it. So since 2019, Fairlead has invested over $44 million in the Wavy Street facility. Since then, Newport News Shipbuilding, as we've all heard in the news and seen that the carrier programs are way behind in this country, and so Newport News Shipbuilding and General Dynamics Electric Boat have asked Fairlead in Portsmouth to help work on their, they call it an auxiliary carrier campus, to build these carriers a little faster and help them build these submarines as well. So what Fairlead is asking for is two things, and one, we're requesting that we have a 5-year extension to build the fabrication building on the North Pier, and we would still intend to do that as proffered in 2020. And then in the meantime, we would ask that we would have the flexibility to use the North Pier as a storage area. We would still put up the fencing and the screening and the trees and the plantings, but we would like to store sections of aircraft carriers and submarines on that pier. Our customer has our customer, Newport News, through the supplier development funds and some submarine industrial base funding, we were supposed to get the funding to build that building, and the funding is a couple years down the road, so we're asking for that extension. I think what's happened is in 2020 and 2021, that funding was was suspended, not just for Fairlead, but for the industrial base altogether until Congress and the Navy could figure out how to best use that funding and get the carrier program back on track. So we're honored to be part of that, and so what we wanted to use the North Pier for, until we can get the funding, we have to rehabilitate the pier, do the engineering, get the permitting in place, of course, and then to get that building up, we would have to have the funding in place. So we would ask that we get a 5-year extension on that, and so the building, instead of being finished in 2026, will be finished in 2031. And in the meantime, again, this is a rendering of what it would look like. We want to put planters on the pier, fence up and screening, and store the pieces of aircraft carriers and submarines here until Newport News and General Dynamics call for the pieces, and then we'll remove them from the property, put them on a barge, and take them up to Newport News for construction. So with that flexibility, we feel like we'll be able to support the U.S. Navy, the Newport News Shipbuilding, and General Dynamics with our multitasking capabilities. And so operations on the main site at Wavy Street will include fabrication and preservation of submarine and Navy ship components, storage of critical fixtures and jigs used to manufacture the sub-assemblies, and then I said shipping by barge to strategic partners, Newport News, General Dynamics, and support the operations of Fairlead's other Portsmouth businesses, like our innovative electronics such as energy magazines, autonomous recovery vessels, wind energy, and drone activities. These activities are done in our, we have 650 Chautauqua Avenue is where we do our electronics and build our electronic cabinets for the Navy. 650B is our shipping and receiving plant, and 750 Chautauqua is our, we have a big machine shop and integration center there as well. And then on Victory Boulevard, 3128 Victory Boulevard, we have a small boat shop for the U.S. Navy where we do their patrol boats and refurbishments. And then at 3132 Victory Boulevard, we just installed this year a panel line. A panel line is where we take the raw steel and the raw I-beams, weld them together, and make flat panels that then get shipped over to Wavy Street. Wavy Street, they become modules for the aircraft carriers and submarines. We put them together and like build a room of a carrier in a modular fashion and get it ready to ship to Newport News. So what we'd like to do is like I say, our ask is twofold, and that is if we could get a 5-year extension with all the proffers that we put in place there, and then use that as a storage facility. We've also agreed to a pretty long list of prohibited uses so that that property is just used for supplementing our businesses. The North Pier really becomes a buffer area when we're trying to build these panels in the shipyard. We've run out of room with laying down all this steel to then become modular pieces of aircraft carriers and submarines. And so if we can use the North Pier as a laydown area for those pieces, and again, put the screening in, the shrubbery, and make it look nice, we'd like to be able to do that. So really, I'd kind of like to open it up to questions. I do have one other point, I'm sorry. We have about 130 people working at the Wavy Street plant right now, and we have to ramp up to 200 by this August. So this North Pier will really help us get some of that clutter out of the yard, where we can hire more welders, more fitters, more riggers, so that we can get everybody on that property making the production schedules that Newport News requires. Again, we've spent about $44 million on that property to date since 2019, and we'll continue to invest in that property. So I'd like.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
Two questions. I'll start off with how many citizens that work for Portsmouth, that's from Portsmouth that work for you? That live in Portsmouth.
Yeah, I don't know that. I wouldn't want to say. There's obviously the majority of our employees, because we are at Victory Boulevard, Chautauqua Avenue, and Wavy Street are our main plants. So I would say that probably most of our. I can get that number for you, but I don't have that. I'd have to go to HR to get that.
Into the planning department, why was this denied?
I know that. Do you want to come up?
Good evening. Mr. Barnes, the Planning Commission as well as the Planning Department had concerns about the compatibility of the proposed use with the entertainment and recreational venue of the adjacent property, namely the pavilion. We also believe that the conditions proffered in support of the application don't go as far as we would like to protect those uses. You're welcome.
Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Bento. I'm going to support the project for a few reasons, and I appreciate the opportunity to tour the facility a few weeks back. I was at EDA when Mr. Bento made a similar presentation, and he answered all the questions there, I think, and was well received. I think some of the concern was the height of some of the modular pieces, but I think it's important to note that those pieces aren't there on a permanent basis. Like you said previously, they'll be barged out, and appreciate the barging versus the trucking. We have enough trucks on our street now. The other thing is they've been a good corporate citizen of Portsmouth. He doesn't know how many Portsmouth citizens actually work there, but I suspect you employ a lot of people and create a lot of jobs. Do you have that figure, Mr. Bento?
Yeah, so right now, again, we have to ramp up by contract. We have to ramp up to 200 just at the Wavy Street yard right next door by August of this year. We've got another 50 people that work at the Chautauqua Avenue facility and another 40 people that work at the Victory Boulevard. And all of those are, again, we just put the panel line in, so the Victory Boulevard employment is going to ramp up as well to support the Wavy Street yard.
Right. And I suspect those are good paying jobs as well. Along with being a good corporate citizen, Fairlead has been a very good neighbor to Intellos. In fact, I don't think we've had one complaint since they've been situated right next door to Intellos. So I'm going to support it. I think it's good for Portsmouth. It's certainly good for our nation in supporting the construction of aircraft carriers and helping our Defense Department to defend our country. But I will support it, Mr. Bento.
Thank you, sir. If I may address the proffer of the noise disturbance of the pavilion.
Go ahead, sir. You can address that.
Okay, so we wrote a proffer into this, and it reads, Fairlead will cease all operations that will cause noise, dust, or other nuisance-type activities before and during events at the Atlantic Bank Pavilion, and those operations shall not commence for a minimum of 1 hour after the conclusion of scheduled events and activities at the pavilion. So we were trying to be a good neighbor and say that before, during, and after an event, we will not have any dust, any disturbance, any loud noises, anything that would interfere with an event at the pavilion. So I just wanted to make sure that that is a proffer in writing to the city.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Bento. I was at both the EDA presentation that Councilman Moody referred to and also at the Planning Commission discussion. A couple of points to emphasize. You said that this is flat panel storage, so one of the questions to your question, Councilman Barnes, what were the concerns of Planning Commission? Height of what's going to be stored there was a question. From the artist rendering, you can see that they have accommodated that with fencing that's closed in and some plantings to provide nice visuals. Another concern that I heard was the concern about dust and noise, and the fact is that there's no plan to do any manufacturing work on the panels while they're out in that storage area in the North Pier, as I understand. Is that correct?
That is correct, and also, it's not a parking lot. There's no cars, there's no additional traffic, there's no truck traffic. It's for our internal use only, and there is no manufacturing. All that's in the buildings and the yard next door.
And then the final point that was a sticking point during Planning Commission in particular, the proffers that were submitted prior to Planning Commission had no mention of only a 5-year extension. The extension in the proffers suggested that it could go on forever. I appreciate, Mr. Bento, that y'all came back and amended the proffers to limit this extension request to 5 years, so that there is in fact an endpoint where we come back and revisit. Either you're going to build the building that the Navy finally decides that they want you to build, or we find a different solution. So I appreciate the work that you all have done. This is jobs for Portsmouth. And so, as Councilman Moody said, I agree with him. I intend to support, because I think you all have been good neighbors and are investing in job opportunities for folks that live here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If I may make another comment real quickly about that.
Yes, sir.
So I should have said this earlier. The storage that we want to do there is for two things. The pieces that are just temporary and are going to go back into the yard for construction or shipped to Newport News. But the larger pieces won't work for us on the North Pier. The larger pieces are going to be handled in a different way. They're going to have to go over the side into the river on a barge and taken either to NNS's storage facility for the larger pieces in Norfolk, or floated directly to Newport News. But the large pieces we can't lift and put over on the North Pier anyway. So that it's not going to work.
Councilman Barnes, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. I just wanted to say I appreciate you hiring people, but for me personally, I don't really care about people getting hired outside of the city of Portsmouth. I represent the residents of Portsmouth, so I care more about them getting those jobs opposed to just randomly giving jobs. And that's with any business, not just yours. To the planning, again, with the information that you heard, how do you guys feel about that?
Mr. Barnes, we are appreciative of the accommodations for reduction of activities before an event. There are some recommendations for conditions that would accommodate sound checks and operations associated with the pavilion before events that we believe need to, the operations need to be sensitive to as well.
So do you believe that do you guys need to talk more with them before we actually vote on this?
Sir, I believe it's already gone through planning.
I'm asking a question. I just want to know. I want to know. It's for my vote.
We've gone through the planning process.
Am I not allowed to ask?
No,
their
I was just
recommendation and
explaining
find out
something to you.
the lawyer?
I wasn't saying you wasn't
am.
allowed. I wasn't saying you wasn't allowed, sir. I was trying to explain to you that we've gone through a planning process.
I get that. I know that. I know the
Okay.
process. I just wanted her from them.
Okay, what was the specific question?
Y'all need me to repeat it?
I believe the question was, is staff comfortable with the conditions that have been proffered? And would we change our recommendation? And our response, or my response, Mr. Barnes, is that if the applicant could attune to some operational issues before an event, that would be preferred.
So is that a yes or no?
It's a no.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions from my colleagues on council? Seeing none, is that all you have, sir?
Yes, thank you so
Thank-
much for your time.
Thank you very much. Once again, this is a public hearing, and because it is a public hearing, if you wish to come and speak on this item, you are not required to have signed up. State your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First question, so coming back to what is going to be the economic, it's kind of pointless. We get to come up here and talk, but we can ask questions, but we can't really get answers to them. So I don't know if I'm doing it, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, or are these pointless questions? Because if we ask them, we're not necessarily going to get answers. So what are we really doing other than hearing the sounds of our own voice? So I'll ask them anyway, because in the hopes that maybe someone's listening. So I want to ask a different question in a different type of way. I appreciate one of your colleagues, two of your colleagues actually talking about it's bringing jobs. What is going to be the economic boon to Portsmouth overall? What is it going to be the economic investment engine? That's one. Is this facility going to be paying ad valorem taxes? That's two. And I appreciate, obviously, being a veteran, and there's some veterans up there, that we obviously want to support our ship. Hopefully, we're not going to be building littoral ships for our carrier groups, because we know what happened with that. That was a debacle. That was being facetious. But at the end of the day, seriously, what is the economic boon to Portsmouth? And when we're talking about jobs, it's easy. Everybody that comes to you and wants to get approved for a project, we're bringing jobs. It's like Oprah. We're going to be the jobs of everything. I get a job. You get a job. Who's getting the jobs matters. Because if it's Newport News or Suffolk or somebody, Chesapeake or Winchester, I mean, I'm quite sure all of you up there don't want jobs for Alexandria and Winchester. I'm sure you want jobs for Portsmouth. At least I hope so. That would be important. So it does matter that people from Portsmouth are getting the jobs. And then I would even go further. I would go further to ask the applicant, if you're getting it, you should have all these things. So when you're doing the planning, who and what demographics are also getting these jobs? This is not a white and black question. This is also could be capital for socioeconomic. How many people working for you are socioeconomic graphics? I would ask all these kinds of questions, because you're coming here and say you're creating jobs. That's so ambiguous. And ambiguity is not what we should be about. Yes, we want to build, but you're also having an impact. When it comes to sound and noise, that has an impact on people's health. So I understand that sometimes somebody up there might put you on the spot, but these are important questions for the health, welfare, and the being of the overall city. This city is trying to obviously turn a tide and make a significant impact going forward in the future. And making small decisions now can have bigger impacts later. So we want to have big decision making with big ideas, but not ambiguity. So is it jobs for Portsmouth, or is it jobs for Newport News, or is it jobs for Suffolk or Chesapeake? That's an important. So I have no problem with Mr. Bento's project, but I do think there's nothing wrong with asking questions that are germane to the project, right? So I'm asking all of you, and maybe one of you up there can do it, or Dr. Patton maybe no, I don't know, but I think it is fair to understand who's really being impacted here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Ms. Donna Biggs. Ms. Biggs, ma'am, if you come forward and state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. Z2401 is a request from Fairlead Integrated Company to rezone land located at 0 Harbor Center Court to amend proffers to allow outdoor storage on North Pier. And a proffer is an offer made without formal negotiations. And what was the proffer to be amended? I called the city assessor's office to find out where the Zero Harbor Center Court was located. She gave me the information about the land. She told me it was on map 3, parcel 10. I found map 3, but I couldn't find parcel 10. And then on the city assessor's real estate assessment data and tax map, it reports that the land is commercial, exempt commercial, industrial. The land is assessed at $1,032,270, and the building is assessed at $57,160, with the total assessed value of $1,089,430. And it says that the Waterfront Acquisition LLC doesn't pay property tax of $14,162.59 per year. So, what's the answer?
Thank you, ma'am. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this public hearing item, if you would come forward and state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Again, my name is Sergio O'Neill. I live at 1420 Elm Avenue in the city of Portsmouth. As an experienced manager, I will say this. If you have a company that is doing something to try to bring more jobs to the city, you know, I think it would be mindful to really take a hard look at that. Most companies would love for 100% of their workforce to come from the city that it's located in. I know I would. I manage businesses in several cities around Hampton Roads. My struggle was that sometimes the workforce was just not there, either for A, lack of education, or B, available bodies, period. And so what does the company do? Do they not expand because the city that they're located in doesn't have the workforce? No, they have to go outside. I'm quite sure that business would love no other than to save relocation fees, transportation fees, because some people pay that as a benefit, by hiring everybody they could and for them to fully staff that Portsmouth location. So let's not let that be the deterrent from denying this business the opportunity to thrive even further in this city. I think, you know, listening to the presentation, they have gone above and beyond from what I've heard some other companies do as far as how they try to be neighborly here in this city. You know, how they try to think about the overall picture, you know. So what is it that, you know, why are we so stuck on, but what does this do for Portsmouth? Are we as leaders saying, hey, you know, we have a company that wants to expand. Does our education system produce students that become adults that allow them to work in a facility like theirs? And if not, then what can we do to solve that problem? Because, see, I know, you know, I get it. You know, it's an election year and we trying to make it like, oh, we're really going hard for the community. And I get that. That's what you're supposed to do as a politician. I'm being a common sense. You know, let's stop spinning in circles and try to say, you know, make it seem like it's something that they're not trying to do. I'm quite sure Mr. Benter would love. And I don't work for him. Let me make that clear. I don't work for him. I wish I did have a job in manufacturing for the government. Because I promise you, I guarantee you they make more than I did. I drive plenty of miles every day for work. Plenty. Sometimes 200 plus, if not more, or fly across the country. And I probably make half of what they make. So I would love, if I could, I would love to work there. But I don't have the educational background. That's not my background. But even at that, for somebody else, another person that would like to come up and say, hey, you know what? This company is looking to expand. I'm a welder. I need a job. Or that company may even draw some people to move to Portsmouth and say, hey, look, this company is expanding. They have more positions open. I'm a welder, whatever they need. I don't like where I'm at. I will move to Portsmouth to come work there. That's the optimistic side of this picture. So why, you know, I get it, you know. It don't, you try to, root for the home team. I get it. I was born and raised in Attleboro. Portsmouth, 1987, September 19th. I get it. But at the same time, too, I know for me, Portsmouth isn't going to survive without bringing more people in. We need to draw more here. Otherwise, our students are going to leave Portsmouth and go find jobs somewhere else. It's already a proven fact. We are declining as a city. I mean, somebody show me where I'm lying at. So if we want to draw people here, let's think about these projects that will bring more people here. And guess what? Oh, by the way, if they don't live here, I guarantee you they spend money somewhere where some of y'all go hang at. I guarantee you they go to Public House sometimes. I guarantee you they go to Roger Brown sometimes. I guarantee you they go to 619 Cantina. All of these businesses, because guess what? Those people got to eat. Then they might need a car repair, in between working. They might have to drop their car off at somebody's automotive shop downtown Portsmouth or somewhere around Portsmouth. You never know, because guess what? You might not have it. You might can't do it while at home while they, where they live. So they might have to do it in between working. So, that's the big picture of all this. I get it, Experienced managers know that. And I'm just putting that out there just for y'all to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you wish to come up and speak on this item, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
William Britt, Sterling Point. I'm going to elaborate on what he said. I agree. Jobs are jobs. We need jobs. We need jobs that pay money coming into the city. We don't need jobs that aren't paying anything. I mean, along with jobs that pay money, they buy real estate, they buy houses, they buy stuff. All right? There's an issue here. We need the jobs. We got our eggs in one basket, and that's basically the shipyard and the military. All right? And we're heading down the same path as Detroit. Detroit put all their money into the auto industry. When the auto industry failed, then you see what's that? High crime and everything else. So we need jobs. I don't care if it's black. I don't care if it's white. I don't care if it's in Portsmouth. I don't care if it's in other. When the jobs are here, other businesses build. All right? Just like he was saying, auto industries, cars, restaurants. We need to bring people into the city to bring money into the city. I mean, cut and dry. It's just simple mathematics. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Jeff Day, 605 Taft Drive. One thing I didn't hear, from my understanding, you're putting pieces together off of Victory Boulevard, but I haven't heard exactly how you're going to get those pieces down to the waterfront to be placed on the barge. Traffic is my concern. So once you get that stuff there from Victory to the waterfront there, I'd like to know exactly how you're going to do that, because I'm pretty sure it's going to generate some traffic problems. All right.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. As I recall in Mr. Bento's presentation, the pieces aren't coming from Victory to downtown here. They're being fabricated there. They're not moving by truck to Water Street. Just want to make that clear.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak on this item, come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for approval. Second.
Is there any additional discussion on this item? Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Can we just get clarity on a move for approval? The recommendation is denial. And so is approving the denial?
Thank you for your question, Dr. Whitaker. The approval is, the vote for yes is a vote to approve this applicant's request.
Okay, thank you.
I would ask that my colleagues please vote electronically.
This item is adopted 5-2.
Thank you. The next item is under City Manager's Report, item 24, 24-94. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering under this item?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting an Operation Ceasefire Program grant in the amount of $467,257 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and appropriating said amount in the FY 2024 Grants Fund for use by the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office for Victim Witness Program.
Thank you, ma'am. And council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move for adoption.
You have a speaker.
I understand that, thank you. I know, we can't vote yet. We do have a speaker registered for this item. Ms. Biggs, would you please come forward, state your name and address? You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Biggs, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 24-94 concerns accepting an Operation Ceasefire Program grant for $467,257 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services for the year July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. Grants Fund for the use by the Commonwealth's Attorney Office for the Victim Witness Program. The Director of the Department of Criminal Justice Services, the Honorable Jackson Miller, writes a letter to the former city manager to report that the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office Operation Ceasefire was approved for the $467,257 for the period of January 2024 through December the 31st, 2026. Requirements for the grant include a statement of grant award acceptance, special conditions, reporting requirements, project due dates. Also, action items, special conditions related to the grant award called encumbrances that require immediate attention. These documents need to be submitted online. How were the people notified that this Operation Ceasefire Program was created? The report reads that the funding is going to the Victim Witness Program. How is the victim witness associated with the Operation Ceasefire Program? The city has created the Community Criminal Justice Board, where the Commonwealth Attorney is part of this board, to be able to work with a team of officials to have accountability available. There's also the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Commission in the Boards and Commission Manual. How is the Commonwealth Attorney going to be working with both of the Community Criminal Justice Board as well as the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Commission? I want to report on how the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is actually spending the taxpayers' money. How can I get a continuous update as the money being spent and on whom?
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we have already made a motion and a second. Or is there any additional discussion on this item? Any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please vote electronically.
This item is adopted 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. We've now come to the section of new business under our agenda. Item 24-95, boards and commissions. And Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, do we have any boards or commissions this evening?
There are none to report.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 24-96, items submitted by council members. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd like to get an update from the interim city manager regarding our open space agreements as it relates to the Elizabeth Minor Golf Course as we're in the budget season. That open space agreement has allowed for the golf course to be valued at $2,500 an acre, according to the state. That's 140 acres of land. At that rate, that gives it a value of $350,000, and the taxes were somewhere around about $4,000. That break on property, 140 acres that fair market value based on previous reports. The fair market value of that golf course property, just the 140 acres, is somewhere around about $9 to $10 million. The open space agreement knocks it down to $350,000. And so, can you report back to us as far as that remaining under open space? I ask that because we received a report from our interim city assessor in which there was a request about the return on investment, and there were no indications that there were any type of analysis or anything that was done on the return on investment. And if we're going to give that type of tax break, it has to be justified. It's not required. And we just looked at a number of projects under the Community Development Block Grant that funds to provide funding for those projects. We can see sources of funding right here. And I don't think that many of the citizens who are subsidizing this golf course can't even play on the golf course or be members. And so I think that this is something that we really need to look to see if it is worth the city's while to have this private golf course under an open space agreement.
Madam Attorney, did you want to address that question? Okay. Madam City Manager, did you want to address that question?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, Dr. Whitaker has called this to our attention and shared the information in regard. I would ask that I am given the opportunity to meet with the city attorney and review, and at the next meeting that is the new city manager will be seated. Some report back will be given.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And are there, Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
You know, along with that, I think it would be a good idea to have the city attorney come back and see what legality do councils normally get involved in, who gets open space agreement, and what the assessment should be on a particular property. It's been my understanding that councils don't get involved in the assessment process, which I think is a good thing. You don't want to politicize assessments. So, Madam City Attorney, when you get back with us, please include that.
Thank you. I think we have addressed that previously. I will look into that memorandum that we've provided on this and then resubmit it in the report back if it is there. If not, we will look into it directly.
And when you report back on it, since it's been made public, report back publicly if you would.
Yes, sir. I will make sure that there's no information that would be privileged otherwise before
Thank
I do
you.
that.
Councilman Hugo, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Back in August, we had a business owner in Portsmouth who came to City Council and pointed out that his pleasure boat rental business is being taxed as a commercial boat enterprise. And the tax rate on commercial boats is about 10 times higher than the tax rate on pleasure boats. He shared some data back then, pleasure boat tax rates in the surrounding community. Our pleasure boat tax rate is pretty consistent with the rates in the other locales here in Hampton Roads. Unfortunately, I think we figured out that there was some language that caused his collection of pleasure boats to be pushed into the commercial category. The action in reviewing this item over the last day, the action got left off with action to the interim city manager to identify the potential tax revenue implications of changing the designation. And then I think, as I recall, the city attorney had actually identified the piece of code that was applicable that would simply need to be modified by us to move him into the pleasure boat category. So if we can resurrect that item on behalf of that business owner and hopefully find a pathway that gets him taxed reasonably compared to other locations where he runs the same business in other cities in Hampton Roads. I appreciate it.
All right, we have it.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, I just want to make sure that in the report back that is clear that I am not asking about the assessment of property. The property is already assessed. The issue I'm raising, which council can raise, is the feasibility of having a property in open space, our use of it, and the impact that it has on the revenue for our city. And so I'm not questioning the assessment. That's for the city assessor to do. The program is in open space. And so the question becomes, should it be? And given that it's private and is there public benefit, I think those are legitimate questions that a council has to ask, particularly when you're talking about 140 acres of land in a city and property that is valued at $9 million or more, and it is now valued because of that open space use down to about $350,000. That's a significant reduction without council being able to question that. I think that's why we also saw property that was valued at $3 million sold for $150,000 because council was silent on it. And so I think I have every right, and this council does too, to question transactions that occur in this city, particularly when taxes are not paid even under the open space agreement, when they were supposed to have been paid at a reduced rate and it still wasn't paid. And so I think my question, and I know my question, is legitimate, and I think there's some up here that want to protect their friends, and I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in doing what's right for the city.
Right.
Yeah, so
Thank you, sir.
protect your friends.
Councilman Barnes,
Protect your friends.
Yeah.
you have the floor, sir.
Dr. Patton, I know you're familiar with this. Back a long time ago, we used to have a summer program for youth, I wanted to look at. I wanted to get a report back on that to find out how many youth did we have in that yearly, and what would be the feasibility to do that now with the same number, and what age group that we served when we did that program.
Okay, let me come. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council, particularly to Mr. Barnes, the program you were speaking of was called the Summer Raise. Then it was one, when we first started, was a Sun and Fun program. At that time, and we're talking about in the '86 timeframe, all summer programs at that time were free to all children in the community. Programs have changed now across the country where the program offerings are much more broader than we did. We had outside playgrounds where the kids were actually playing out. We had them where there were no centers. Things were done under the trees, and I'm talking almost 40 years ago. Well, it's different now in program offering. We served a lot of children in that coming and going. We always served summer USDA food programs. For some of you who do not know, Portsmouth is the oldest USD summer and school feeding program in the state of Virginia. And that was started by Jeff Norman and Mr. Freeman, and Mr. Freeman's mother, who passed when I came here, who was in her late 80s, were the initiators of that program. So I will provide you some information and let you see just the kind of program we had, the kinds of children that were participating, the numbers. And I'm sure I can get that from records in Parks and Recreation now.
And you just gave some information that I think the citizens needed to know. So I'll let you finish, but I realized I asked the wrong question.
Okay.
I meant the summer jobs program.
Oh, the summer, repeat your question then.
Yes. And I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
realized I didn't say jobs.
Okay.
We used to have a youth summer jobs program in the city of Portsmouth through Parks and Rec mostly. And I wanted to know what was the age range that those kids were, and what's the feasibility of bringing that back, and how many kids did we have that was in that program?
That was a federal program, which was the Summer Youth Employment Program. And those were funds that came in from the federal government to cities, inner cities across the country. Those programs stopped around the late 70s in about 82 or 83. And all of you remember across the nation during the summer, federal government provided money for kids to work. Those kinds of programs do not exist, but now we have the recreation aides that can be high school students that can work in and on playground programs, of which applications for such students to work are being taken now through the HR department. So there could be as many as, and I'm going to yield to Mr. Coleman, if I can, to tell me about how many programs, how many children or youth are hired through those programs.
So before then, I was born in '85. I remember it was a program in the '90s. I'm talking about that one. I don't remember that one from the '70s and '80s.
Okay, excuse me, sir. I didn't mean to go that far back, but there was federal funds at that time, which do not exist right now. But the city, through its hiring program involving youth in the summer programs, are actually taking applications for youth right now. In fact, I passed the name on just recent to Mr. Coleman. And I just want to know about how many youth do we hire, do you know?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Councilman Barnes, to answer your question, I couldn't give you a specific number, but it's a part-time position, so Parks and Rec has the ability to hire anyone who applies that meets the criteria to be hired. And again, it's typically 16, 17-year-old high school students in the summer. We receive their applications, we take a look at it, process it through, it goes up to Dr. Patton for a final signature after it passes through me. But that program is wide open. I believe what you're referring to is obviously not the one that Dr. Patton was referring to, but we received federal fundings for the program she's referring to. It was a summertime initiative, so I remember reading, because I wasn't here then, summertime initiative to hire the youth in the city of Portsmouth. And it was wide open. It received funding from the city to subsidize those salaries. But that's where we are with that. But the rec aides for the summertime, we're starting to staff those up now.
So could we get a report back on what the federal government was providing, what age group, maybe it was the same age group, but what age groups they were doing, and so we can look at the feasibility of actually doing that again. Because I think that one of the things that we got to do in the city is get our youth working to deal with this crime issue. And I'm thinking personally, I think you can start at 15 to 19. So that would be something to look at. So I just answer those questions for me when you can. Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
So, Dr. Patton, when we brought you on as city manager back in what, 2012, 2013? 15. So the summer program that you put in place, and I believe it went beyond the summer, like the student internships, are we still doing
Yes,
those?
that was called the Municipal Fellows.
Okay.
That's the program
Right.
that we had, that students who were in high school
Right.
could come and actually work in a department.
Right.
After school.
Right.
I saw, and I mentioned, in talking, in the city manager's budget, there is a position for municipal fellows. Now, the municipal fellows were more of college students. We had college students, about 3 or 4 from ODU, that Frank Woods was one that was in the city manager's office. He was working on his PhD. He worked for 2 years, just part-time, and he's now a professor at Bethune-Cookman University. So I would say, and you're asking me, I think I will go back and look at the framework of that. The job descriptions are there and bring that back as we are talking about the proposed budget.
Okay.
Some things that you all may want to consider.
All right, thank you.
Because as I keep saying, as I've met with you all individually, we have presented to you a budget that was proposed. It is now time for you to develop or tweak or whatever before it is time for you to pass it on May 14th. So I will bring that for consideration.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I just want to say, I would like to learn more about that too.
Okay, we'll get it and let all of you know. Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Patton, if I could just ask you to look into one more. With that, through the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, we do have a summer jobs initiative that we partner with them through their Next Gen Summer Jobs Program, where they provide funding as well as administrative support to our young people here in the city of Portsmouth. I know previously in our budget, we did support that effort, so if you could bring back what that looks like as well, and how many children we serve in that program through the Workforce Council.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of council, I'm very familiar with my time here that we supported the Workforce Council Next Gen, but I don't see it in the budget now, but you've given me 3 things to look at to bring back. Deals with summer youth employment. Okay, all right.
Thank you, ma'am. And so moving along, are there any other items to be submitted by council? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item, item 24-97, report on pending items. And Dr. Patton, ma'am, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, at the request of City Council, it's not on? Excuse me for having difficulties pulling this
okay.
microphone to me.
It's okay.
At the request of the City Council, I was tasked with determining the cost of a forensic financial audit for the City of Portsmouth. In talking with the city's financial advisors, Davenport and Company, Brown Edwards CPA, and Clifton Lawson Allen, the city's auditors, it was determined that a turnover audit will provide a quicker and more cost-effective avenue to ensure that the city's finances are proper and in accordance with recognized best practices. Brown and Edwards are already contracted with the City of Portsmouth, and this engagement can be performed under the city's existing procurement process. The base cost of such an audit begins at $7,500. However, based on the procedures that the city selects to have performed will determine the final fee. And in that, their procedures they sent to me that we will look at, I can provide to you so that, and to Mr. Carter, who we've already talked about, and he's very pleased that we're moving forward in this direction. There may be 1 or 2 things on those procedures that we want to include in this the turnover audit that may add a little more cost, but nothing in the realm of hundreds of thousands of dollars for what we want. As they do the turnover, if they see something that they would like to call to council's attention that they may want to look at further, then that would be the determining factor by you all.
So, ma'am, just to be clear, then your recommendation based on your findings is that a forensic audit is not recommended, but a turnover audit to start?
Yes, that is my recommendation.
To start.
To give you an example, like you may want to look at internal controls, separation of duties, sign of processes, and expenditures. So
Thank you.
that's just good.
Dr. Whitaker, you have the floor, sir.
I just want to make sure I heard you correct, Dr. Patton. They were recommending that because you said it was quicker.
It was quicker, and we're getting ready to make some financial moves.
Right,
which-
right, right. So, given the fact that those financial moves are about to be made,
Yes.
would it be in our interest to wait till after those financial moves take place?
No, I would recommend, and they recommend, we move forward with the turnover, and then findings of something that we need to, then we do the forensic.
Okay.
And that is our recommendation, and with council telling them to move forward, we'll move forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Is that something we don't need to take a vote on that right now to move forward with that at this time? Well, we'll just do a consensus by show of hands. Are we all okay with the turnover audit? Okay. Before we move on to our non-agenda speakers, I would ask that we take at least a few-minute break, maybe a 5-minute break to get a bathroom break and get ourselves together. And if that is okay with everyone, we'll move forward with the 5-minute break. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the speaker statement?
City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his/her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Our first speaker for this evening, Mr. Cortland Mariner. Mr. Mariner, if you will come forward, sir, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Hello. Hi, Cortland James Mariner, Bowers Hill, Virginia. I believe my official address submitted to the clerk can serve for the record. Greetings to you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, other members of City Council, appointed officials, present city staff, Sarge, faith-based leaders, community leaders, and the entire Portsmouth citizenry. Before I begin, I just want to pay homage to some individuals who have been consistently, they have been shining lights of professionalism, decorum, intelligence, both emotionally and intellectually, and has served as stable leadership for the Portsmouth family. To be true to protocol, I'd like to start with Dr. L. Pettis Patton, who God has seen fit to guide us through these delicate and trying times as we transition to Mr. Carter's administration. Doc, I want to thank you for returning to the city to push us forward in a positive way in the pursuit of excellence. I have to say that I've missed your presence ever since you departed in late 2020. And for those in attendance, if you haven't read Dr. Patton's brief bio on the city's website, you should definitely check it out, as it's very well written and detailed. I believe that a person could write a 30-page essay on Doc and still not encapsulate everything that she's been able to do for this city. I know that we only have you for a little while, but I will be basking in every single moment that we have you in that seat. To our city clerk, Ms. Deborah White, I believe a fellow citizen, Mr. Clyde Toller, has already given you a lot of verbal flowers, but I would just like to echo his sentiments very briefly. Over the last few years, you have demonstrated a level of professionalism that I think everyone present in the citizenry can learn from. Without your thorough knowledge of city ordinances, code, Robert's Rules of Order, I definitely fear that we as a citizen would be in poor position. You have been a great mediator and almost like an ombuds to City Council. And I hope that the public can recognize what a precious gem they have in you. To our city attorney, Ms. LaVonda Graham-Williams, I just want to thank you for what you have done in support of the laws of this city and this land. Your resilience, persistence, and cool head are among some of the things I enjoy witnessing when you engage in city business. And I know the road has not been easy for any of you, but I am truly blessed to have you all with us. Lastly, I'd like to thank the hardworking city staff, employees, for their efforts across various departments. This includes our public safety heroes, police and fire. Many times they have thankless jobs. So thank you for what you do in serving our community. Economic development's been showcasing some business development within our city. Special shout out to workforce development for training the next and upcoming generation. Got museum and libraries putting on some wonderful events I like to take my daughter to. She's a very artsy person, so enjoy those things. And they've been shelling out great memories in the Children's Museum for at least 25 years now, I guess. Obviously more than that, but as far as I can recall. I would like to list out all the other city departments because they and their staff do a wonderful job in working to keep our infrastructure together, like Public Works, General Service, and Public Utilities. Parks and Rec, thanks for the upgrades to City Park and the rec centers, other community programming that you have for our youth to express their life and interest in a safe environment. Thanks to marketing and communication for always putting on some great presentations. That last budget presentation probably was the coolest one that I've seen to date. Definitely enjoyed how concise that was and how much it encapsulated as well. Not to leave out any of our other folks, but planning, behavioral health, engineering, permits and inspection, social services, IT, and human resources. Have much more planned tonight, but I think that this is good. I do want to say that, we as a city desperately need some hope. We desperately need some folks who are sitting in the stand like you all who really, care about the citizenry, not solely, maybe some personal, things that others may have going on. If I could just kind of jump down, I really have casted about for about 2 years for the right words that would keep me consistent with your rules. I think I found some of them. I did have a much longer letter prepared, but I think I'll save that for another date. In the meantime, I wish you all very well. Thank you for listening to my words and, continue to press forward.
Thank you, sir. And I think it's appropriate, based on Mr. Mariner's comments, that we recognize all the people by giving them a hand clap based on their attention. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Mick Kaufman. Mr. Kaufman, if you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes, sir.
Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, members of the council. My name is Mick Kaufman. I live in West Parkview, and I'm the president of the West Parkview Community League Incorporated. The city's recent focus on speeding in school zone areas prompted us to examine student vehicle accidents and how they may apply to our students walking to and from IC Norcom High School. Research indicates that most vehicle accidents in school zone areas involving students were the result of a mixture of distracted drivers and distracted students. Many of our kids from West Parkview walk to and from IC Norcom High School, crossing the intersection of Peninsula Avenue and London Boulevard. The students too often have their attention focused on their cell phones. Drivers are too often focused on making the green, yellow, or the slightly red light at this intersection. This combination provides the ingredients for disaster. We asked the council to place warning lights on Peninsula Avenue like the ones on London Boulevard to alert drivers of an active school crossing. A fair compromise was made, and a school zone sign with crossing times has been placed on Peninsula Avenue at this very dangerous intersection. On behalf of the West Parkview Community League Incorporated, I express a sincere thank you to each of you for listening to our logic and creating a safer environment for our kids and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Our next speaker is Pamela Anstead. Ms. Anstead, if you're available, if you're here, if you would please come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes. Pamela Anstead. Our next speaker is Laura McIntyre. Ms. McIntyre, ma'am, if you would come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Laura McIntyre, and I live in the Shea Terrace neighborhood of Portsmouth. Been a tax-paying homeowner there for nearly 35 years. I'm here concerning the rampant and wild feral cat population causing problems in my neighborhood and seeing if I can get any help with this problem. These cats are generational. I believe some animal organizations refer to them as colonies. For over a decade, these cats have been defecating in my yard, destroying my patio furniture, killing wildlife, sunbathing on my shed roof, having sex in my yard, muddy paw prints on my car roof and hood, paw prints in wet paint that they proceeded to track all over. I'm going to just have to give some background so maybe you can feel my pain. If you're a cat lover, you're welcome to come to the neighborhood and take the cats home with you. I am particularly not a cat lover. Anyway, they are just nuisances. The smell, the cats have multiplied in previous years. One kitten litter born in my abandoned doghouse, another litter soon after born behind the neighbor's AC unit. They're all black. The kittens have had kittens over the years. I do not own any cats, nor do I really like cats, but every day they are in my yard or under my porch or under my deck or anxiously sitting beneath my bird feeders. Just now my security camera went off at 8:29 and at 9:35 cats were coming through my yard and walking across my porch just since I've been here. On the way here I drove around the block. I have to purposely drive down Holiday Street because it's one way, where it was 12 cats over a week ago and 4 in the street. There are now only 3 cats on the porch, 2 in the yard, and 3 in the street, because I have caught 4 cats in the past 6 days. I've tried many deterrents, such as those things sold at Load and Feed and Seed, and other methods suggested online. Nothing has worked. I have washed my whole porch with vinegar just to have cats on it the next day. Portsmouth Animal Control will supply a cage, but you call and get on a waiting list, could be 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. You then borrow the cage for a week. In years past, I have trapped 6 to 10 cats, 1 raccoon, and 1 possum. In the past 1 year, a woman rented the house behind me, like Home Improvements over the fence, on Holiday Street. Apparently, she has been feeding the cats, but they don't stay in her yard, they're continually in my yard. I've tried a water gun, but as soon as I get by the back door open, the cats scatter or jump the fence. I've tried pepper flakes, cinnamon, citrus peels, store-bought cat deterrents, and spread them under my bird feeder, and the cats just lie in it. 2 months ago, the vacant house beside me became occupied by squatters, causing me to put up a security camera for safety. I now see these cats not only in my backyard and deck, but each day and night on my front porch, even scratching at my front door. I called Animal Control and finally got on the list for a trap. While waiting, I set a trap which I had purchased some years ago from Ollie's, and I caught a cat. I then called them to pick it up. When the woman came, I told her I needed a larger trap to make sure I was on the list, because it was inhumane to keep the cat in that small of a cage. When she tried to put the cat in the carrier, it snapped at her or bit at her and got loose. I threw my hands up in the air, all the trouble I went through to catch the thing, and the animal control lady lets it loose again. She then gave me a paper with some numbers to call for cat rescues. And I said that I needed a larger trap because the larger cats can't even get in the trap that I purchased, because some of the cats are now too big. Anyway, sorry, I had to write some notes. This was on March 26th. For a dog, well, then I told her the woman on Holiday Street had been feeding all the cats, And I said, could you please go around and talk to her? I didn't want to make enemies with my neighbor, but she had been feeding the cats, and there were like 12 on her porch. And she said she'd check into it. I went to work. I got a call later from the animal control woman saying that nobody was living in that house. And that kind of shocked me because I had just been there, drove past there a few days. So I drove around, and there was a vacant, it was vacant. Can I talk a few more minutes, please?
Go ahead and finish your thought, ma'am.
So the animal control lady said the house was vacant. So I drove around there, and definitely there was a for rent sign. So the woman apparently abandoned all these cats.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what can be done about it, but like I said, I got the trap. I've caught in 4. You're only allowed to set the trap after 4 o'clock, and on weekends you can't set it. So I have to buy the bait, set the trap, get on the list, get the trap, call them, get the cat picked up, get the trap again. And now there's only, 8 cats, which can have kittens by the time I get the trap again.
Ma'am, thank you.
So I just don't know what y'all can do.
Well, we'll have you talk to someone, and perhaps there's a remedy, but thank you for your time.
Yeah, I hope y'all can do something to help.
Ms. Mayor,
It's
can
a
you tell her to
community problem.
see Ms. Hodge?
Yes, she's going to get with it. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Barry Randall Jenkins. Sir, you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Council at Large, Dr. Patton. I was coming up here tonight to talk about the crime issue that we have and the agendas of our council members. I tell you, God is somebody, because as I was sitting there, I just got back into the country yesterday, and as I was sitting there, everything that I had prepared to say, you all had kind of brought it up. I do want to start out by saying, Councilman Barnes, I agree with you 100% in reference to, we need to make sure that we fund the things for our children first and foremost. You kind of made me remember why I voted for you, because you've been on it tonight. But on a serious note, guys, it's interesting because we are at 14 homicides and we're just 4 months into the new year. If you ask, any of you all or the mayor in reference to what you're going to do for crime, our mayor always says, he worked with Stop the Violence, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, and they did a bike ride. And it seems to be that that's where the talking stops. My issue is we see videos of kids with guns, and we see people riding, spraying bullets and shooting, and nobody's really, saying anything. And I would expect that this mayor would lead the charge. If you guys remember me about 8 years ago when I led the campaign, Lead or Leave. But then as I was sitting over there, I was saying something. As much as I agree with Councilman Barnes, we got to be fair. I think the mayor opened the door. And I'll share with you all how I believe that is when you have, I believe it was Ida Barbara Learning Center, all these people asking for money and trying to, be financed. Well, when you think about it, I think it's only but fair, because it was interesting when I just heard Councilman Moody say council should not get involved in assessments and things like that. And I know you all have heard the gentleman behind me and other people constantly come up here and speak on issues in reference to some land that was valued at $3 million, received for over less than about less than $200,000 or whatever it was that the person paid for it. We're never going to get out of the issues that we have dug ourselves in as long as we continue to get elected to serve individuals and not serve the city at large. What I mean by that is because I was scratching my head. I don't care whether I like a person, don't like a person. I like to be fair. And I'm saying to myself, why, when we lost the first manager, when we lost the second manager, our mayor took it to heart. This thing really bothered him. People that was in meetings was like, it almost brought him to tears. And I'm saying to myself, wow, the light went off. Because, people say a lot of foolish stuff, and I'm like, no, that man got too much integrity for that. So that was never my issue. But then I realized when Angel Jones was our city manager, the gentleman who purchased the land that was worth $3 million, he got it for less, pennies on the dollar. It was done through Angel Jones. So if you all are a body of council members, you all only direct 3 separate entities: the city assessor, the attorney, and the manager. So when I heard Councilman Bill Moody say that council members shouldn't be involved with things like that, and I agree with him 100% to a degree, but I appreciate Dr. Whitaker. That's why I tell anybody, and I've gotten in arguments with people. I don't care who we vote for first, we got to vote for Dr. Whitaker, because we know the school's going to be taken care of, and we know that regardless whether you're black or white, he's going to hold you accountable. But I was sitting there thinking, Angel Jones is gone. So what's the common denominator? Our mayor. Because the man was able to purchase the land through Angel Jones, and now our city assessor, Miss Janet Culpepper, who I feel very bad for, got involved in something else that she should not have got involved in. So I hope Councilman Moody will hold our mayor accountable, because this lady, our assessor, went to the treasurer's office on behalf of our mayor and asked the treasurer to give that same individual a tax rebate. In the words of Jay-Z, stop me when I'm lying. That's a problem. So we need you all to continue to look. And Councilman Hugo, you tried to call a point of order because you didn't want that information to get out. But there's no way possible that we're going to continue to sit back and allow ourselves to be bidded off to the highest bidder. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Sherman Tyler.
Hello, how y'all doing? Sherman Tyler, 1812 Parker Avenue. I would like to address the crime and the killing that we got going on in the city. I'm not going to mention her name, but my niece was killed Tuesday, just leaving her mom's house, just dead, And I'm not going to really get into that because it's still an ongoing investigation. I think that her mother should be the one that really comes to speak for you. But, Miss Joyce Brown came in here, I remember, 2 months ago and came up here crying, saying that on that same street that my niece was leaving, her son caught over 100 rounds, Mon Brown, and he got killed. So that street have claimed 2 people here recently. And I just feel like, and I'm just gonna say it, the city failed us. The last 4 years that I've been coming out here, the city, y'all have completely failed us. And let me show you how you failed us. Now, look at the money that we have actually spent fooling around with these managers. We can't get on the same accord. This person against this person, and we blowing money. And we really up here debating about an audit where we blow money at will. And we asked y'all several times to put cameras. If you're short in the police department and you need to hire more officers, in the meantime, while you're doing that, put cameras in them places. So it's a sad thing when the police officers got to go knocking on people's doors and asking people, did you have footage of somebody losing their life? Can you imagine how the mothers feel? How my sister-in-law feel right now? They have to knock on neighbors' doors to beg them, for possibly footage to solve a murder. And we should have street cameras on them corners, And we're debating about a $7,000 audit, and we have blown money, $20,000 bringing in Jakes. That's through money all at these city managers blowing our money. Folks suing the city of Portsmouth. but we can't get y'all to do anything for our kids to stop dying. If you're short, why does home done claim almost 30-some lives on y'all watch? The last 4 years, 40 deaths are Dale's home. And you're saying you can't sell a property? Do what London Oaks did. You gotta do something. A man walk into his car and get ambushed and killed. And I haven't seen nobody but Barnes. The people need to hear from the leaders, man. Y'all talking about everything else, talking about buying the jail. You talking about putting $24 million on High Street and flowers and concrete. But you're not gonna come forth when we had 2 deaths less than 20. Y'all got the chief police swamped. He don't know what to do, man. Everybody at him, they attacking him. But y'all got the ability to put stuff in place so he can implement. He don't make no rules, y'all make them. But we'll rip him up, and he's just trying. He don't know what to do. Y'all take some of this money, man, and put them cameras in these communities. It's a sad thing once again when you got 4 or 5 officers knocking on people's door. Hey, your camera's on. Where the street cameras at on the street? That boy just got 100 rounds and the mama came in here crying. That should have been there soon. That woman come here crying. Y'all should have put that camera on Carver Drive, Portsmouth Boulevard, them high crime areas that y'all already know. We had 170 deaths on y'all watch these last 4 years. Our city have never been there. We have never had that many, like last year, we led our whole entire city's history in murders last year. So, and y'all have failed us, man. With y'all petty politics, fussing and arguing and bickering. I don't like you and you don't like me, so I ain't gonna do. And this boy been coming here, Cedric. He been coming here, man, with that list for 4 years, begging y'all for these same cameras, and you have did nothing yet. He did nothing. Man, save these kids, man. Y'all cut this mess up y'all doing up there with all this headstrong mess and fight for these kids, these mothers that gotta bury their kids. Fight for them, man, because y'all ain't fighting for us. Y'all fighting for yourself.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Mark Godaldig-Yatrovsky.
Mayor, council, other neighbors, I have a modest proposal. Taking a page from the book of one of the big utility companies, Dominion Energy. They have a program called Energy Share, and it enables their customers to make donations to a fund that can be used to help other customers who are having trouble paying their electricity bills. I want to suggest that we look at doing that with our public service bills. Establish an account to which people can voluntarily contribute. It's for Dominion, it is a 501c3, so you can take a tax write-off for it, and neighbors helping neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Mr. Coleman Young.
Good evening. My name is Coleman Young, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council and staff. I come before you because I have a concern with possible contamination of the land at James Parker Recreation Center. And I come before you to ask for a soil sample be done on it to see if there is contamination at that land. Let me give you a little background information. The first day I was hired in January 1976, the first question I had at a public review at Tower Mall was, what's going to happen to the recreation center at Mount Herman? At that time, there was a junkyard there, and the junkyard had to be relocated, had to go on the other side of the railroad tracks. So it took a process. We did relocate across the street. I mean, across the railroad tracks. We built the recreation center. Then at that time, they were located there. Then they moved to Victory and Elm Avenue. At that time, then they vacated Elm and Victory Boulevard. And the EPA got involved, and they made that into a Superfund project. So then it raised my question. When I was hired to do upgrade recreational facilities. I provided renovation of neighborhood facility, Port Norfolk facility, Cavalier Manor Recreation Center. We were the first time that we put lights on the tennis courts, repaved the tennis courts. We provided fencing for ball fields and so forth. So I was kind of like the contact person for Mount Herman. Then I thought about it. I thought, I don't remember at any time that EPA came in and did evaluation of that property. So I was concerned. I talked to two members of the council, asked if they would talk to the city manager to have a concern about it. I realized things fall under the cracks. Then last council member, I talked to Dr. Patton about it, concerned about it. She said she would check on it. Then in April the 2nd, I called the director of Parks and Recreation Department to let them know that, what's involved in my concern. I called Mr. Wright. He called me that following Friday. I mentioned my concern. He said he would check on it and would be give him about 2 weeks to be involved in it. Then I made a call. Asked to be on the non-agenda speakers tonight. This was like 9 o'clock this morning. 4 o'clock this morning, 4 o'clock this afternoon, I got a call for the ombudsman. It's mentioning that the land was bulldozed. And I asked the question, so who authorized that? What was involved in that? And it kind of gave the impression if it was bulldozed, then there must be a concern about contaminated land. I went and called EPA. They said, well, referred me to Virginia Department of Environmental Agency. I asked them if they're concerned about it. They said they checked the records, and they said, we don't have any records of any involvement of any environmental agency there. Now, I realize that's 45 years ago, so easily the records have been, might not be available. So my concern is, look, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I asked you just to authorize the manager. She has the discretion up to $100,000 to do a soil sample to the area. If there's no problem, that's fine. But you got a recreation center that's built there. You got playground equipment. You got a ball field. Two members of council were concerned about the environmental situation on Effingham Street. There the EPA came in, they they signed off on it. They were concerned about houses 60 feet away from the site. Here you got houses 30 feet away from the site, and no action has been taken. So all I'm asking is I called an environmental engineer. They said initially the first phase to gather information is $2,800, and then the second phase is to it's like $10,000. So I ask you, please.
Thank you, sir.
Just take soil samples and let's find out really what the situation is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Coleman's request seems like a logical request since kids frequent that facility, can we look, have staff look into seeing if we can test the soil?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, the first person I will speak with is James Wright, and there should be a record of such if it has been tested, or if not, we move forward if council so desires to get a small sample of soil.
Thank you.
And see what we find.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Donna Biggs. Ms. Biggs, ma'am, if you will come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
My concern is about trauma. I heard a lot about trauma tonight. It concerns the trauma and memory issues with the people who are living in Portsmouth or who have lived in Portsmouth in the past. And one of the things I'm learning, people don't realize that there's 3 brains: the emotional brain, the thinking brain, and the survival brain. And I'm finding that a lot dealing with people, that they don't realize they got feelings. And it's not being acknowledged or learned. So the Social Service Department has created the Fatherhood Mentoring Program that is held on Tuesday nights. And now there's a Motherhood Mentoring Program beginning on Monday nights. And these programs are essential for the training and education of fathers and mothers in their role as parents. The second level of government, the first level is the individual. The second level is parents and their right and duty as mother and fathers to bring about the kingdom of God on earth in the rearing of their child or children. The parent's duty is to maintain the integrity of the family structure by the bond of holy matrimony. And these bonds include the emotional and sexual needs of each other, so God's law forbidding adultery is enforced. The parents and extended family members are to be economically self-sufficient before bringing a child into the world. It is also the parent's duty to be able to protect, teach, feed, clothe, and provide shelter for their children. Parents need to be held accountable if they fail to teach their children how to honor the Creator and His laws, or how to respect the property and privacy of another, not to steal or destroy the property of another, to be honest in all their transactions with others, to honor and obey his or her parents and elders, and to respect authority by enforcing discipline. When parents fail to provide for the love and belonging of their child or children, this is when trauma begins. Traumatic events contain high levels of emotions, like post-traumatic stress disorder, and it develops in children and continues into adulthood. The PTSD is about developing a negative outlook about life and about oneself. PTSD results from the thinking that there is no one to protect you when a need arises. These needs are safety needs. Crime and violence is the way the young are being taught to protect themselves from harm. There's a way to prevent all these traumatic events. If the people want to learn how to love one another and learn how to resolve conflict. There are also ways to heal from the trauma and memory issues from the past. There's trauma-focused therapy. We can love each other once we learn how to love ourselves first. And it all takes communication.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Dr. William Dodson. Sir, if you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Hi, William Dodson, Box 3269, Park Manor. We have one of the biggest events of our city coming up this weekend. As a matter of fact, Friday night, there's the PIT dinner, where you get to meet some of the biggest celebrities in basketball that we've ever had in this city. I haven't seen any of you promoting it, so please let me ask you, could you, on your personal websites, could you go on your Facebook, could you please promote this tournament? I'm getting to meet, hopefully, one of my childhood heroes. Dr. Julius Irving is coming to this. Now, there are some people that say there's some other bigger stars than him coming, but for me, he's the biggest one. I've got to meet this guy, finally, in person. Please promote the PIT as much as you can. The tickets have not sold out for the dinner on Friday night, and we'd like to see them get sold out. They're $50 a piece. Thank you. Second item. When I first started coming to these meetings about 4 years ago, I was incredibly aggravated by the lack of action that was taken by this committee, to the point that it angered me. I've taken a business outside of here and run it from $0 to where it now generates $15 million a year in revenues. And seeing that success, I had very little patience with you. And I had to check myself and say, why am I having so little patience with this committee? And I had to go reset myself and say, listen, I've got to do something. It's part of it, it's me. So I've started back on reading some books that changed my life to help me build that $15 million business. One of those books is the one you have in front of you, by Zig Ziglar. Meet me at the top. See you at the top. I'm sorry, is the title of it. It has about every life lesson you would ever want to learn. So I'm resetting, but I wanted to share some of that with you guys. If you've read the book, thank you. Pass it on to somebody who might benefit from it. The last item is, speaking directly to this lack of action that I still see us bogging us down on this committee. Y'all asked about 6 months ago for a crime commission to be formed. Over 6 months ago, I believe it is. Why hasn't it been formed? Well, when you asked for that committee, first of all, there weren't any applicants to it. I called and said, why aren't there any applicants? And she said, well, we just haven't, Deborah said, we haven't had them. I said, let me get on the phone. I got on the phone and called. We only got 2 applicants to call in from my phone calls to the committee. And I said, why? And I went to the website and found out that the website wasn't set up right. Called Deborah, and Deborah said, I'll take care of that for you, and she fixed it. So I called some more people, and they said, okay, we'll join the committee. Well, then I called back, and after I thought we had filled it, and found out, wait a minute, the committee wasn't filled because y'all had specified civic leaders to be on this committee. So I got out the civic leader list that y'all have on the city and called almost every single one of them, and we filled those seats, those applicants for that committee. I, as a citizen, shouldn't have to be doing this. If you guys want a commission, please, let's take some action to make this committee happen. It seems like what we're doing is palliative. There's been 3 studies, if I remember correctly, on crime. I know you have read the latest one on the children and gun studies. I know you've read it. I don't know how many of you else of you have read it, but there's been 3 studies ordered by this committee on crime, and yet there's no reference to them. I don't see anybody talking to them. I don't see any action being taken. Could we at least go ahead and get some research done? And I think that's where part of the problem is that you guys don't have the time or the energy to go do the research. Let's delegate that research to the committee, get them to do some research, bring us back numbers. The final thing that I found out about the committee was that members were saying nobody who's applied is qualified. I'm sorry, if somebody in this city was qualified to solve crime, don't you think they've done it already? What we need is some analytical minds that can address it. So I think that you take some from some of those people that have applied to this committee. Let's put those analytical minds to work. They may not know how to solve it, but I'm darn sure they're going to find out, and they're going to bring some advice to you for council that things can get done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is William Britt. Mr. Britt, sir, you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, William Britt, you heard my name several times today. Once again, something near and dear to me is crime in the city. And I want to reiterate this. My brother was murdered in 2011 in the city. His body was taken. We never found his remains. My mother went to her grave 6 years ago with a broken heart, not knowing where Jimmy's remains were. So if we use common sense things of why we have the crime in the city. The blood and the hands are in all of your hands, not the police department, not the police chief. And the reason I make this statement is because of the policies and procedures that you guys have done pertaining to crime. Number one, we want to promote Section 8 housing. We want to promote low-income housing. We want to promote housing for the indigent. We want to promote housing for the mentally handicapped and all that. All these crimes are basically revolve around this type of stuff. All right? Why don't we go over there and then we want to prosecute police officers. We'd rather prosecute police officers than prosecute the criminals. We got a broken city city here. We got Commonwealth attorneys that lose the cases because of inefficiencies. I mean, it just agitates me. This gentleman right here, he has lost 2 family members. In what length of time?
Sir, I would appreciate it if you would address counsel.
All right, that's fine.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
so I got a major problem. The blood is in all your hands. These policies that you guys are putting into effect and not doing anything to resolve the problems, we keep going back and forth. Oh, black, white, male, female, mentally handicapped, and all this. Now, I did take psychology, and it really bothers me. Matter of fact, Mark Luck is one of the detectives that worked Jimmy's murder case. And luckily, we had a strong police department at the time. We lost police chiefs time and time again. We lost strong city managers time and time again because of the policies pertaining to city council. All right? And we got several new members of city council. I'm not putting it on them. I'm talking about the old city council. So we got a problem. And you want to use common sense? Let's use common sense. Number one, you don't promote things, bring into the city, and it's going to cause problems in the city. All right? We go over the, I can't fathom that. You know, it's first off, we're looking at the situation of your secure neighborhoods, be they black or white. You have white flight. White flight is white people moving out and these neighborhoods being bought up. You got then the black people that got money and got good jobs moving out. All right, we're heading in the same direction as, like I said, Detroit, because people, I don't care what color they are, the biggest thing to them is their safety, their family safeties, their house, their cars, catalytic converters being stolen, cars being stolen, people being murdered, loved ones being murdered. And you guys are sitting on your hands doing absolutely nothing. You're spitting in the wind and it's hitting you back in the face and everybody else. All right? You guys, there's policies that need to be made that are going to go overly and help. Not this bickering and all this stuff, back and forth, back and forth. You know, we need to use common sense, just straight up common sense. What is causing the problem? It's not the police chief. It is not the lack of police. It's the situation that you guys are bringing into the city and you're letting it evolve into a cancer. All right? And once again, it needs to be resolved. It's disgusting. You see people, and murder doesn't see a color, murder does not see a race, it does not see sex, does not see sexual preference. Murder is murder. And I guarantee you, any of you on this board, none of you probably lost any family members. My brother was brutally murdered in 2011. All right, my mother went to her grave 6 years ago, not knowing where his remains are. All right, and thank God for the police department, Mark, and the people who headed this investigation. We did have a resolution to the conviction of the one who murdered my brother. But get off your tails and do something, and not stop blaming it on chief and all that. It's on you. The blood is on your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Sergio O'Neill. Sir, you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm Sergio O'Neill, 1420 Elm Avenue. First of all, before I start on what I was going to go on, I'm going to do this. I take accountability for my actions the last time I came to this council meeting, because that's what I do. You know, being a manager, first thing I learned was accountability. Everything rises and falls on leadership. That's all I ever heard throughout my whole training. And me taking myself as a leader, I have to hold myself accountable. So if I embarrass myself, the people that had a hand in my upbringing, and I'm going to speak it for what it is, Dr. Patton, because she's been knowing me for 20-something years, since I was 7 years old. So what I was brought up as is not the behavior I displayed last time. I have to grasp the attitude of not letting people bring me down to their level. And that's just what it is. So, but moving forward, there's been a lot of talk, and I want to address decorum. This council, over the last few years, has had some decorum issues. People have questioned council members' decorum. But and I get it, but people, one thing we have to realize and remember as human beings, people are going to be human before they hold any elected office, before they are a male, before they are female, before they are anything else. They're going to have emotion. And I would rather my elected leaders show what they're passionate about than sit and remain silent and have us wondering. And I'm going to point out our vice mayor. The foolishness before last that we had going on with the city manager situation, she had to speak truth to power. And whether some people agree with it or not, that's on your own accord. But it had to be said the way it was said because, see, a lot of people were being quiet about it or act like they didn't see what was going on until she stood up and raised the voice of alarm that needed to be heard so people can start paying attention. Sometimes you have to go there. You should not have to, but sometimes you do. And if I'm wrong, then I'll be wrong. But I'm going to stand on what I said. Sometimes you have to carry it. You have to get it in a form, like teachers do this all the time. They have to teach to the individual students' learning ability. All students don't learn at the same pace. So you have, as a council member, had to break it down in terms that certain people could understand for them to wake up and see what was going on. Then you have to do what you have to do. And I get it. Don't ever stop doing that, regardless of wherever you may go. So I hope others will learn from you. Because see, somebody, and that's another interesting point. Somebody brought up Flint, Michigan earlier. Mr. Mark brought that up earlier. They had a council member down there by the name of Eric Mays. If you ever seen how he acted in the city council meeting, you think Portsmouth got it going on? Flint, Michigan said, hold on 1 second. They had something better for you. But he didn't play no favorites. He didn't cut no corners with nobody. And he was very well respected in his community, not because of acting and performing, because he stood up for people regardless of who they were. Right was right and wrong was wrong with him, and that was that. We need more of that right here in Portsmouth. And I will also say this. There was a statement, concerns about, how taking care of, single parents that might need, help with childcare. That is a real thing, So the city is doing something about that. That's great because some of those parents, they rely on payments from organizations like DCSC. And if the DCSC don't receive their money on time, then guess what? Then that mother or that father that's relying on that payment to pay that child care, they don't have that money. And, so whatever the city can do to help that along, I will greatly appreciate that, because I get it, that we can't be doing that because without stable child care, we have less of a workforce. And you see how that ball keeps rolling because those parents are then forced to stay home to take care of their kids. So, let's just be mindful of how we do things, And again, I'm going to tell y'all, moving forward, I'm not going to let that energy come out of me. I just know how to vote in November, and I hope other people pay attention and do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Cedric Cradle. Mr. Cradle, sir, if you come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Vice Mayor, City Manager. I don't see the Chief of Police, and citizens of Portsmouth. I just came here to piggyback on a lot of things that's going on. I'm going to ask the question again to a lot of you council people who ran off of violence, gun violence. What happened to the cameras? what happened to the support that the city needs to curb this gun violence. I've been coming out here for 3 years, and I warned you guys several times. And again, y'all can look at me like I'm crazy, but this summer is gonna be a violent summer. I'm telling you. So you can get your committees together and pick up trash and all this other stuff in the city of Portsmouth. There's gonna be a violent city. Mark my word, and I'm not just saying it to be saying it. I just spoke with a mother who lost her son last week, young man. These families are hurting, and I can't say it enough. It's like beating a dead horse. Everybody know when I come down here, I come down and they keep adding names to the list, and most of them are African American men. Now they're killing women, and either one of us could be walking down the street and get caught in the crossfire. That's what's going on now. And I'm tired of hearing politicians say it's going on in the other city. We can make the difference. We can be different. We can't just keep saying accepting, or it's happening in Norfolk, it's happening in New York. Why can't we be the difference? Show some type of change. Show some type of effort into changing this thing instead of accepting it. I seen people stand out Dale's home, politicians, and say something to the narrative that say something. If you see something, say something. Well, I'm telling you right now, them people out there scared to death. I heard a politician tell me we got the Dale's home is gonna be open for 20 more years. Look here, if that's gonna be open for 20 more years, get ready for 20 more deaths a month or year. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. But we sitting back on our hands, and it's tiring for real. Some of the parents now, they losing hope. And I know, I'm not here to blame y'all. I know y'all didn't do this. But we have to put some things in place. You keep talking about jobs. We keep talking about hiring people in Portsmouth. There's no trade schools in Portsmouth. Not one. But we want to hire kids and jobs and businesses trying to bring to Portsmouth. What? We don't make any, do we have any daggone common sense? It don't make any sense, people. But again, I don't want to ruin my time because I tell my parents that I'll come and say the kid's name, but today I'm only going to say the 12 names or 14 names that have been killed in the city of Portsmouth this year, and the number is going to increase. And I pray that it's nobody's in here, family member, white, black, or indifference. Enough is enough, people. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And sometimes you got to let it soak in. But at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to vote on the things that are really needed. That crime commission, they don't want me to be a part of it because, again, I know it's bogus. I know it's bogus. And y'all know it's bogus. But anyway, Andrees Jennings, Yolanda Jackson, Danielle Rogers, these are the homicide victims from this year. DeMarcus Dilley, Kadir Wilkins, Katara Harper, Evian Joyner, Benjamin Nesbitt, Arthur Harris, Johnny Burden, Chardonnay Wilson, Darrell Canzal, Earl Martin Sr., Amira Green. People, it's going to only increase. I ain't even said the 165 other names that I used to come up here and say. That's just 12 more added to the list. And I spoke to Bill Moody when he was running for office, and I told him the same thing. We have to do something. And we ain't doing enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Elvira Johnson Williams.
Ooh, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elvira Johnson Williams. I reside at 3313 Armstead Drive in this beautiful city of Portsmouth. I'm not going to argue with you guys tonight. I ain't even going to talk about you too bad. I've listened to a whole lot of stuff tonight during the work session and everything. A lot of it boring, some I don't understand, some I'll never understand. But what I will say to council is this. You can't fix the problem in Portsmouth until you get people on board. The problem can't be fixed by city council. I have to say that right now. It's not city council's fault. Our children are running rapid. I'm gonna say this because when I went to Reading Across America in March, I went in a 5th grade classroom to read a book to some children. It took that teacher 15 minutes to get their attention, just long enough to hush. I asked a question in a 5th grade classroom. I asked, what is your favorite kind of animal? I heard a dog, I heard a cat, Gerber, but the one that blew me away was the iPad. In a 5th grade classroom, a young lady's favorite pet was an iPad. We have a problem. We have a serious problem. So I guess I'm not just talking to council, I'm talking to the citizens of Portsmouth. We as parents, we need to step up our game. We as parents need to know what's going on in our homes. In my house, and my son used to tell me, Mom, stay out my room. I said, when you pay rent, you got a room. Don't close the door. I want to know what's going on. If need be, take the hinges off. Take the door off the hinges. The only person in here that's going to have privacy is me. People of Portsmouth, please. Let's engage with our children. Let's find out who our children's friends are. Because our children are begging for us to pay them some attention. Now, I got almost 2 whole minutes left. We got a citywide cleanup. Great American Cleanup is coming. And I challenge anybody under the sound of my voice to meet me at the casino or meet our waste management team out at City Park on April the 20th. Bring your children with you. I have a set of kids. I have a whole classroom of little people, almost 3, 4 years old. And we were blessed to get them some vests to help them get out there and clean up our city. We got to start somewhere, people. It needs to be done. I want to thank Mark Hugel for coming out to my area last week when the young lady was shot. All she did was leave her mother's home, and she got shot. She dead. Parents, let's embrace our children. Let's be, or let's try to be, parents, and let's stop being friends. It hurts my heart that our children are dying because a lot of parents have never had grandchildren, never had first cousins, nieces, nephews. And it's not up to City Council. It's not up to Chief Jenkins. It's up to us. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Shanina Francis. Did I see your name right, ma'am? Okay. Well, if you would help me, I will get it right. That's how it seems to be spelled, but if you could help me, I will say it right.
No problem.
How do you say it properly?
Shanina.
Shanina. Okay, Shanina Francis.
Shanina Francis. I live in Green Acres, and my problem seems a little trivial now that I'm standing here after all those people, but it's waste management. I feel like since we went to this new bulk pickup system, it can be tweaked a little. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but problem one, the amount of time it takes to find a link to request bulk refuge pickup is too much. It's like you got to dig into the site. Why can't it just be on the front page where it used to be, where it started? Just put it on the front page. Second, even when you click on the link, it rejects you. I asked to pick up a tire that didn't have a rim and some bushes, and I got rejected because it said it had words in it that could be spam. So what good is the system? My pickup day is tomorrow. But other than that, oh, I have one more thing. Just in case my mother sees this, I do not mind paying any of your bills, and I need her to know that. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Ms. Sheila Joseph. Ms. Joseph, you will come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Sheila Joseph, 139 Grand Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. First of all, just in case none of you might know, I'm a new civic lead. The last time we talked about community over in my neighborhood called Fairwood, Fayetteville in the neighborhood. So I'm the president of that from Wall Street to Temple. When the shooting went down on Grand Street and Portsmouth Boulevard, I was on the phone. I'm gonna tell you, I probably wouldn't have been alive if I hadn't called someone about the other incident before that one, because I had a 1:30 appointment to do something earlier that day, but then I got a phone call because I had a phone problem, and I didn't hear the phone call from the family member. That was 1:30 a.m. And I tell people all the time, I stay up, whether you believe me or not, but you can call me at 3, 4, or any time. For the last 50 years, I'm 70, and I've been up because of the shipyard and a waitress. And I would do at least 21 hours for 5 days a week. So I don't sleep. And so this lady called me concerning her child, and my phone was damaged, and I didn't know. But then the third time she called, I got it at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, I'm coming. Tell me where you're at. And she told me, and I went. And the thing is, when the chief got up and did the press release, he explained to the citizens that it's very important for people to not put out information that is not true, because it delays them doing their job. I'm here to say to anybody that's listening to my voice, I know that I have seen a lot of things, and from the media, social media, you're making it hard for the chief to do his job, because you're putting out that the police killed someone. We don't have proof. When the mother needed somebody to show a video, nobody had anything and gave it to her. But I'm saying, as a citizen, I remember on Portsmouth Boulevard in Grand, that's where I live in that neighborhood, Fairwood. And in Fairville, we hear guns shooting. And like I said, I was on my way that night to go get something to eat, but I said I'm gonna call her. The stuff that we heard is false. And next thing to know, it delayed me from getting out. But if I wouldn't have been on the phone talking to the person, I'd have been dead, because I normally go across that way to go and get something to eat. And then there's another incident where a person on that same street would have been dead if they wouldn't have did what they did, because it went in an area we ain't gonna talk about it right now. Because I want to see more community involvement of citizens acting like they care about each other. In my neighborhood, the neighborhood and throughout the city. A lot of people know the things that I do. Even from New York, they calling their family here asking, get with Sheila Joseph. But you know what I want to say? I want us to pray for our leaders, for those that wants to make comments. I'm holding the community to do their part. And each community, regardless where you live, look out for each other. God plant these things in our hand, and also tablets and the ring and all kinds of things that's going on for us to use. And do not put false information because you're slowing down the thing. And the other one I was going to say about is about the water bill. And I had someone to contact me, and I just wanted to let you know, for whatever reason, 2 times I attempt to come downtown on Monday because I was told want to get with me on Monday before I came here. Can I finish this?
Please, ma'am, you wrap
And
it
my
up.
vehicle stopped working at T-Mobile. And I couldn't make the meeting with the president and some other people that Zoom. And so then when I came to agree to come here Monday at 11 o'clock concerning the water bill, I couldn't come. But today I got a new phone Saturday, so I won't miss any calls. And then I took care of some of the issues that I found out. But I want to say this. Together we can make a difference in everybody's life, but we got to pull together. And I want to say that if that meeting I would have made at 11 o'clock about the water bill, I wouldn't have got these bills showing proof, and I would like to have a town hall meeting. It's not just me. It's a lot of citizens and probably some of y'all.
Okay,
got
ma'am,
it.
ma'am.
I just want to address
wrap it up,
that.
please. Thank you.
I'm wrapping it up.
Okay.
But we need to have a town hall meeting concerning all our issues.
Okay.
This ain't the spot.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Ms. Lisa Downey Hood. Ma'am, if you would come forward, state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, and members of the council, good evening. I am B. Lisa Downey Hood, President of the Portsmouth Alumni Chapter.
Ma'am, could you please put the speaker a little closer to your mouth so we can hear you? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Good evening. I am B. Lisa Downey Hood, President of the Portsmouth Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. According to a 2023 study from the Virginia Department of Health, Black women consistently have higher rates of natural pregnancy-associated deaths when compared to their white counterparts. In 2019, the number spiked, with Black women being 3 times more likely to die during childbirth. 11.8% of babies born in Portsmouth have a low birth weight, under 5 pounds 8 ounces. This percentage is even higher for African American babies at 14.7%. Babies with low birth rate are more susceptible to various health problems. Portsmouth has the second highest infertility rate in this area, with 12 infants dying before their first birthday out of 1,000 live births. The leading cause of these deaths include birth defects, preterm delivery, low birth weight, sudden infant death syndrome, injuries, and pregnancy complications. The percentage of African American children in Portsmouth under the age of 18 who live in families with incomes below the federal poverty rate is 35.5%, significantly higher than the overall Portsmouth value of 27.7%. Children living in poverty are more likely to experience physical health problems as well as behavioral and emotional challenges. Some of the root causes and disparities of these numbers include limited health care access, late or inadequate prenatal care, economic challenges that affect access to health care, underlying chronic health conditions, and systemic and unconscious biases within our healthcare systems that can impact care delivery. To bring attention and support to this issue, the Portsmouth Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority will host a community baby shower on Saturday, April 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Portsmouth Department of Social Services located at 1701 High Street here in Portsmouth. This event will be sponsored in partnership with the Portsmouth Department of Social Services and the Portsmouth Jewels of Hope Foundation. The targeted audience includes expectant mothers and new parents of children 1 year old or younger. The purpose of this community baby shower is to educate parents about the disproportionate risk that infant mortality, providing information to improve pregnancy, infancy, and early childhood outcomes. Provide critical resources highlighting essential information to help eliminate the significant disparities in prenatal health, and in order to present low birth rate, premature births, and infant and maternal mortality. Also, to connect families with local resources, include healthcare services, nutrition programs, mental health support, and parenting support groups. By addressing these various needs, we seek to enhance the overall health outcomes. This will be an educational and fun-filled event with games and activities, vendors offering valuable resources, and an expert panel discussion featuring our care team of experts to include midwives, doulas, birth assistants, and lactation specialists in order to create positive change for better birth outcomes. Through this event, we hope to empower families as they gain confidence in their parenting abilities and equip them to make informed decisions for their children. Create community connections as families meet with other local parents, forming bonds and shared experiences to create a sense of belonging and support, and to establish long-term benefits, understanding that well-informed parents contribute to healthier outcomes for both moms and babies. We invite you to join us on Saturday, April 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Portsmouth Department of Social Services to celebrate, educate, and empower parents in our community. We solicit your support in spreading this word across our city to ensure that we reach those who may benefit from this event. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Mr. Armando Grundy Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Armando Grundy Gomez. So I want to just give a little bit of levity. As much as people were talking about how bad things are, I can think of one community that Portsmouth is not worse than, and I don't even want to name Flint. All we got to do is go to Dalton, Illinois, and none of you are worse than that. So anyway, in spite of that, what is more important than that is leadership is not by a title you hold. Leadership is also about how you lead. It's not about a position. And it's usually, even when I was serving, and even going up through time, I always found people that were the quietest always had the most to say. Always had the most to say. And last meeting, a lot of us heard a quiet person talk and say something. And I'm going to follow the rules because I'm going to say we're not talking to anyone. I'm going to talk to the body. And I think that a lot of this, what we're dealing with, is it's easy to point fingers and say what we're not doing and what you're not doing and how we could improve. And I know some of you get books, and I heard one of the gentlemen that brought you books up here to read. I could think of something to read too. There was a nice, and I think the Admiral would know this. There was a ship called the USS Benton. And the person that led this ship, it was the last in the Navy in retention. It went from first to last. If you ever want to know about that story, I'll share it with you. Share it with you because it's a story about leadership. And how did that leader go from going from last to first? And you say, well, what does that have to do with me on council? What does that have to do with me and my leadership capacity? It has everything to do with everything because you can't change anybody until you decide to change yourself. And that's a personal decision. And you think if you're leading by fear, intimidation, or because you can outsmart somebody, that's all good. But it's all reflecting on who all of you all are as leaders. You have the conscience of mind when you wake up in the morning and have to look at yourselves. Am I doing the best for the people that are out here today? And sure, we can go down the list and talk about it. I think there's some dynamic leaders when I call in. I appreciate your city attorney for the dynamic person that she not only displays publicly, but to every resident. Your city clerk, dynamic leader, as is her chief deputy. I also want to acknowledge them. And it's always good to acknowledge people and give them their flowers while they're here. And I have always tried when I come here to be respectful of each and every one of you. And I want to say this too when it comes to your city manager. A city manager, you've all had struggles. I don't know if Dr. Pettis was a part of ICMA. I'm actually a member. But it's also important that there's a set of norms when it comes to a city manager. A city manager, in spite of who holds the position of the leader of the council, is not to be political. It should be apolitical, in spite of who leads. In spite of who's up here, whether you have a 5-2 majority or 1-5 deficit, it should not matter on that manager and how they lead. And transparency and ethics are an important thing. I know some of you say, I want this type of audit, or I want to divide this type of audit. Transparency is an interesting thing. I'm from Florida. We have a nice little thing called the Sunshine Law. I don't know what you have in the Commonwealth, but I do know this. Governments are all the same. You should be so transparent, it's sickening. You shouldn't run from conflict. You should run to it. You all should lead this Commonwealth in transparency. One of your commissioners last week who was quiet was talking about transparency. And I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to people out here. You all should be so transparent. Your records should be open. Your emails should be open. You should do that. Why do you, if you have nothing to hide and nothing to fear, you shouldn't fear a forensic audit. You should not fear because you're a good leader. But to sit here and say, I didn't do a request for a proposal, so I'm going to get over on somebody, your processes should lead you down a path. Your processes should lead you and guide you. That's your North Star. I get frustrated at watching you all sometimes because I think of Dalton, Illinois, which is not an example of good leadership. I think you all are dynamic people. I do. You probably think I'm singling you out. I really am not. I respect each and every one of you. And I respect each and every one of you when you elevate as leaders and start being more transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And our last speaker for the evening is Allison Brady. Allison, are you still with us? Allison Brady. I don't see Allison. So if there is no other business to conduct by this body, this meeting is adjourned. Be safe and stay healthy.